the sky. Pull the demon loose. Put your hands to the sky. Pull the demon loose. Put your hands to the sky. I'm just expressing myself. I'm dangerous. Put your hands to the sky. Be that. Pull the demon loose. I'm just expressing myself. Be that. Pull the demon loose. Man, life can get all up in your ass, baby. You better work it out. Make it hard to adapt to this.
Jackets to sunglasses while I'm on this microphone. I accelerate like a cheetah that'll grab a hold inside of your skull like drinking tequila. As if you saw me standing on the head with all my weight upon the cranium, as if it was an alien I'm taking on. As we succeed to give you something to believe in, like buying new speakers for my MC achievements. They're gonna love it when you're picking up their pieces. Relieved that they were blown as if we're running out of reasons. An independent artist that is putting on a clinic, who can put them in a coffin like you're jumping on a Civic. With so much energy in everything I've ever written, that I'm true to what it's like to see a man that's on a mission. When tracks get produced by X-Ray and I'm the MC, you need to brace yourself as if you wanted straight teeth. Make the lines come clean with the beats. To this new type of song. Make the lines come clean with the beats. We so amazing, enormous, and major important. Can't take any more of this making a fortune. As I think of what it's like to make $1 million living, saying that'll be the day like Buddy Holly and the Crickets. Well, I've had to live and learn this music industry is sinister, with ideas worse than skinheads who burn literature. People who love to be above you like your miniature, but can't wait to show you how the oil in your vinegar. Sometimes you're gonna lose and you might come across it when it becomes a life that none of us has ever wanted. And you wonder why these kids aren't any good at taking losses, cause even when they suck, we're still telling them they're awesome. So if you even know what digging in the crates means, then we can dig it like a crate full of break beats and uncover the way that the bloodsucker will eat at your brain bucket while making the most of it. Yeah, to this new type of song. Turn my tape up. Make the lines come yeah, make the lines come clean with the beats. I observe the concern of a person when urgent to burn through their mind like they're searching for purpose. To flip me the bird while I'm kicking these verses with words that emerge like a surgeon with nurses, breaking their focus as if they're explosive. To dance on the floor when it's swarming with roaches. I'll play you a song when I'm done and I've spoken. I'm traveling on like a carriage with horses.
Squeezing lemons from my words to paint an image with a shoestring budget, and I'm loving every minute. Going over the head is somebody calling the medic to let them know that my flow is incredible and poetic, huh? A young gun that was having too much fun came to make a name. Look how I did it and then some. Not paying attention is really expensive. It may cost you everything as if we're going against us. More than a little, I've been in the middle of being in it. Then wait a minute, listen to what he does. Getting better and better and more inventive than ever. To put a sentence together like you're wishing we had enough. I'm tripping this big as if you're living in crisis. Flow committed to winning and can deal with how life is. And I have the feeling that you want it ill when it's like this. Writing lyrics appearing on chrometal devices. Under your skin, I'm on a mission to flip fast. And where to begin, I got it covered like gift wrap. When I go in, it's though I'm thinking beyond fast. Through complex rhythms with a pen and a notepad.
I can make the rhymes come clean with the beats. Listen to this new type of song. I can make the rhymes come clean with the beats. I can make the rhymes come pumping. Microphone till I'm motherfucking 60.
Too much of me is broken that I can't fix. Shipwrecked on an island in a thick sweat. Waking up every morning feeling upset. To end the argument was shut it up and get dressed. Anyway, you go to such a lack of respect. Then it reminds me of MCs I haven't dissed yet. With people bugging me as if they were an insect. As if they're only out to calculate my every misstep. A deep breath for how it's losing all my interest. I need a backyard to build my son a swing set. Yet at least I've gotten back to where I'm having fun. And you weren't even built for things that I've already done. So doing nothing but hold me back. I'm still grateful, it's just you need to stay like that. I get it, I've won a ton of battles too and they are nothing more. War's been going on before I was ever born. You learn a lot from mistakes, having no regrets. When it's over and done and you're the only left. Yeah, I can play any game if I'm getting paid. That explains why being framed, you need to stay away. I'm dreaming bigger than the dreams that I've already had. And I can handle if you're thinking I can't handle that. The more I walk through the world, the more it's gotten small. I'm not the only one who's lost a grip on right or wrong. When men talk, I hear a lot of you a man of what? When women talk, I hear a lot of I'm not man enough. My only route is showing love the most from coast to coast. And whether you can rhyme or don't, I give it. It's too easy to say I'm just a know-it-all. Nothing I've ever said compares to how I soldier on. Being from Vermont, knowing where I've been. If I haven't built your trust by now, well fuck it, then I'm gone. Difficult than bringing joy. That means the closer people get, you hear a lot of noise. And I don't even think I speak as lethal as the way social media inflated some egos. Feeling more grateful than I've ever been. Still trying to be perfect, but ain't nobody is right. That's why I'm cool with if you're uptight and nervous and willing to admit that you're doing it on purpose. You cross the line when I don't walk, when I talk, then I'm not looking back for your ass anymore. Nah, already snapped when they tried to compare myself to those living over already here, prepared and done tripping off a memory lane. Too many of you can't see past somebody to blame. It's clear that you want the greatest person that I haven't met. No one's using you against me every chance they get. To spend my life making albums that won't flop again. But nothing makes sense, I take it as a compliment. Yet it's strange, my pain has become pleasure. That others who have more say I'm making them feel better. I just remember learning quickly as a little child how being young is only going in and out of style. Was too young to understand what it's like when they told me I'm in for the fight of my life now.
listen to my lyrics and they listen to my songs, they're listening to the way that it really should be, and you know that, and I know that, because your kids are my kids.
You seriously mean what you're saying?
Absolutely.
This is not an act.
I've been doing this ever since I was a child. What you see is what you get. I am that guy.
You a happy person?
I'm beautiful. When you have got the power to fight, you fight.
You don't even know what fucking love is. What is
Okay. I think we're good. Let me just see if on my end everything's popping up. I see some familiar faces in the chat. I'm seeing our mimics. I'm seeing our members. I'm seeing people who watch the mimic commentary. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Oh, let me know if you can hear Kyra. It's okay, puppy. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Give me 1 second. I need to give Kyra a treat because she's got a lot of energy right now, so you're going to see me walk away. I'll be right back. Come here, puppy. Sit. Good girl. There you go. Good girl. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to what I hope is going to be a new method of interaction and video creation moving forward. I want to kind of take what we've been doing in the Mimic commentary and turn that into videos that are able to be produced and presented to the public. And I thought, what better way to do that than kind of do a Mimic commentary live. But before we could do that, I want to just make sure that we're all together here. We're getting all our hellos out of the way, and then we'll jump into MC Live. Do I read Sutter Kane? If you've watched, oh goodness, in one of my videos from earlier this year, I use a clip of In the Mouth of Madness very quickly when what's his name is in the theater watching himself and laughing. So there's some 40-second delay. The delay is in the chat, not in like the voice, right? Everything is synced up. That's what I'm concerned about. The delay is fine. So this is how we're going to do things. This is going to work like not like a presentation or a lecture, but I'm going to go with a topic. We're going to start with a topic, and then I'll take breaks, and then we'll read the chat, we'll do questions, and then we'll just go from there. So, okay, voice is synced, chat is synced. That's awesome. So one of my, how do I put this? Back last year, a year ago, I made a video titled How Elden Ring Hides Its Story, because I found that many people who engage with lore and analysis online were missing a very crucial part in how the story is presented to us, namely when information is shown to the player, and how we're supposed to use that new information to recontextualize old information and then anticipate how that changes new information moving forward. Like if you were to read a storybook from beginning to end. One of the reasons I think that that is the case of why people miss that is because our culture, when it comes to consuming art, has been so commodified that it is seen as just a consumption, not always an intellectual experience, not always a spiritual experience, not always an experience that we take from our heart and try to find meaning within the art that we are enjoying. When it comes to games like Elden Ring, or any piece of media for that matter, but when it comes to a game like Elden Ring, it's very complex, it's very complicated, there's a lot of moving parts. And for most people, they do not know how you are supposed to engage with its story and its lore the way the game wants you to. Much like how the games are difficult to begin with, back in 2009 and 2011 when Demon's Souls and Dark Souls are coming out, they were lauded as revolutionary video games because how they changed, or how should I say, how it felt like they were returning to form. You know, games were supposed to be hard. They weren't supposed to hold your hand. They were supposed to be difficult, challenging experiences that, because you overcame them, the sense of accomplishment was what made them good video games. This was completely neglecting that video games console video games came from the arcades first, and the goals of arcade games was to get you to gets you to feed them quarters and constantly give them money so you can actually beat the game. Now that we're moved into a space where you own a video game console and then you own the video games that you have forever, it's no longer a case of, well, we need to make something that's so difficult that it needs to engage people because they want to see the ending. Dark Souls, I think, took that difficulty mindset and tried to make that part of the experience, part of the story. You'll see so many videos and people saying how Dark Souls saved their life, how it taught them about struggling, how it brought them to, appreciate what they have. But that is just through the gameplay. When it comes to dissecting the narrative, I don't think many people have realized how Dark Souls tutorialized dissecting its narrative, and then how Elden Ring did that further. So, Ian says, they play the game, watch a lore tuber, and forget 90% of the fine details in the game. And then we'll go online and discuss it. So, what is my goal? My goal first is to show how does Dark Souls and Elden Ring tutorialize engaging with the story through its gameplay, and then doing that theorizing with all of you. So first, before we can get to Elden Ring, we have to go to Dark Souls. We got to start a new character. Unfortunately, this is on my PlayStation where I don't have like late game stuff, so I got everything set up. So I got some things set up. Right out of the gate, when we compare to how Dark Souls is presenting its information to when we get to Elden Ring, which is far more complicated, we could see that, by just looking at the classes, you get some sort of idea of who these people are. You get some things like clerics on pilgrimage, a pyromancer from a swamp, sorcerer of Vinheim Dragon School. These aren't sentences. We're just getting a few words. We're not getting overloaded with information and lore. We're essentially just getting a rundown of who these characters are going to be. For this case, same thing with the gifts. These are very rudimentary. We're goddess blessing, divine holy water. We're not thinking about lore here. We're just thinking about gameplay. What do we want? Well, for this case, we need black fire bombs. Same thing with the faces. Again, on your first playthrough, you're not really thinking about what's going on here. When we begin Dark Souls, we get a lot of proper nouns. We get a lot of names. We get a lot of who did what when. However, it's not really that complex or complicated. Yeah, Riff Asylum Demon. We're getting, before there was anything, we had dragons. And then after this, we're going to learn about fire and how it made disparity, heat and cold, life and death. Then we're going to learn about Nito and Gwyn and his knights, the Witch of Izalith and her daughters, Seath the Scaleless, who betrayed his own, and the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten, and Murphy is getting upset. Here, Kyra, have another bone. When we think about what is being shown to us here, we're getting two major things. We're getting how does the world work, and who are our major actors and characters. We can essentially divide these into two groups. We have the dragons, and then we have the people who found the souls of lords. And then within that group of the people who found the souls of lords, we could break that down into like 5 more groups. You got Nito, Gwyn, Izalith, furtive pygmy, and then Seath, who betrayed them. It's not very difficult. It's not very complex. It's 2 factions with little factions in between them. It's still a lot of information, so it's easy to get lost in all of this, but it's not that burdensome. Any questions? Any comments? This is going to be, oh, my picture is all screwed up. I gotta make me bigger. Whoop. I'm recording everything as well. Actually, I should record this too, just in case I lose footage from the stream. And I want to make sure I have everything. And also another idea for post-production is taking what I say here and turning it into a real introduction, maybe a written one. But we have to go through Dark Souls first so we can see how much has changed in the, gosh, how many years? I guess it's 11 years between Dark Souls and Elden Ring. And then not to mention the introduction of George R. R. Martin. It's really important that we go back to the basics before we can like really understand how these games have developed over time. It's also kind of unfair, I think, for, newer players who just started to play Elden Ring and wanted to get into the story and lore, but maybe didn't have like the tools equipped. However, I was rewatching some of the first lore videos that were coming out when Elden Ring was released from people who hadn't made any videos before. Like Elden Ring was their first thing, and I don't think they'd played Dark Souls or anything like that. And they were doing I think a much better job than some of the mainstays who have done like analysis, because they really focused on the characters and who the characters were and how they felt. And I think that's like probably the most important thing when it comes to looking at these games. I guess second most. I'll take that back. First most. If you consider your own character a character. So finishing up the cutscene, getting right into the game, we started with the history of the world, a major conflict that changed that history, what's the primary dilemma, and then how your character fits into that dilemma. Particularly, you're an undead, corralled and led to the north to await the end of the world, and this is your fate. If you've watched, if you're a member who's watching the Mimic commentary and you're caught up, you might remember that we did a Dark Souls episode about this. I think we've done like 2 or 3 introductions to Dark Souls. So let's watch the cutscene play out, and then I'll tell you the important bit. Oh, actually, I don't think the audio is playing. I think that's my bad. Sorry, everybody. Can you hear the gameplay audio, or do I have to fix this? Let me see. Yeah, I don't think gameplay audio is coming through. I think I have to do default Elgato. Okay. And not the game. Alright, give me 1 second. I don't know why the game audio isn't coming through. Let me change. There we go. That was my problem. Tell me if it's too loud. Sorry about that. I mean, the game audio isn't that too important. I can add that in post if necessary. Okay. That should have fixed it. I had it set to the wrong controller. So, immediately, what jumps out to me is when that knight drops the corpse into the cell, we are seeing a shining bright light on the corpse. And then when we get into the gameplay, that light is still there. And it gives us the opportunity to pillage it. So, right off the bat, the game is showing us that the mechanics of the game are consistent within the cutscenes and the way that the world works. When we leave our dungeon cell, we start getting tutorials on how to play the game. Use this for camera controls, use this to attack. Alright. Use strong attack. This is, you know, not a very, I would say, good tutorial. It's better than what they had in Demon Souls, where there was, well, you had the tutorial level, but if you wanted to get the intricacies of the buttons, you went into the Nexus, and then all of these were just in one spot. But the game adds another tutorial as well that's kind of hidden. So I think one of the biggest barriers to entry when it comes to looking at these games and trying to analyze them for their stories and what the stories are trying to say is the item descriptions. There are so many items in this game that say all these various things, and it's so hard to keep it all straight and try and make out what is important and what isn't. When we first start the game, barring any items, any starting gifts, we're always going to have the black separation crystal. We're always going to have the dark sign. We're going to have whatever armor we start with. But most importantly, we have to pick up this key. And this key is one of the secret tutorials in Dark Souls. Dungeon Cell Key. Key to the dungeon of the undead Asylum to the north. A mysterious knight, without saying a word, shoved a corpse down into the cell, and on its person was this key. Who was this knight, and what was his purpose? There may be no answers, but one still must forge ahead. So, we're getting a breakdown of just exactly what we saw in the cutscene. We're getting confirmation that the key was on that corpse. And then we're getting the tutorial. Who was this knight, and what was his purpose? There may be no answers, but one must still forge ahead. So the game is showing you, when you get an item description, start asking questions. Who was this knight? We could start thinking, well, what does this knight want? Who is he? Well, we saw his helmet. It kind of looked like this. Kind of looked like the icon on there. And we had all those messages written on the floor, and it showed that same helmet that he was wearing. Later in the game, we're going to learn that messages are written by other players. So perhaps this knight was leaving us messages purposely. Why did he leave us the key? What was his purpose to let us out of the jail? Who are we as a character? Why are we important? Why were we in this jail cell to begin with? So many different questions start coming just from looking at this key. And then the most important line of all is that there may be no answers. These games are not going to have concrete answers, but we still must forge ahead. We can still ask them and find our own conclusions to these questions. And whatever answer you come up with is probably better than whatever answer the game can tell you, because just like beating that hard boss, just like learning its mechanics by leveling up and maybe using an item that it's weak to, or using an elemental that it's weak to. It's you that is doing the hard work. It's you who's doing the accomplishment. Now, if you were to play Dark Souls for the first time, you probably, you might not know to look at the items and read the items. If you're going on your second playthrough, well, now maybe I'm going to start reading the items. On your first playthrough, you won't know to look up and see that the Asylum demon is waiting for you. You are most likely going to run in and then see this little note right here, and it's going to tell you to get away. And then you get away, and you lose the opportunity of getting his weapon. Generally, people kill the Asylum demon after New Game Plus. So it's important to remember when we get our items, when we get information, that dictates how important that information is. So we're going to get his item early by using the black fire bombs, and we're going to look at this item and compare it to what does it tell us with no information, and what does it tell us for someone who's just been through New Game Plus. This is why we have to get our black fire bombs. This guy, he's really just a chump. Okay, so we get the Demon's Great Hammer. Just by, and one humanity, but we're going to look at the Demon's Great Hammer, because not everyone gets that. We're going to use our key. Who was this demon? What was his purpose? So he has a demon weapon built from the stone arch trees, used by lesser demons at North Undead Asylum. This hammer is imbued with no special power, can merely beat foes to a pulp, providing you have the strength to wield it. Okay, so we get that the demons have weapons built from the stone arch trees. We learned just from the introduction that before there was anything, there was dragons and their arch trees, and then we saw the trees get destroyed. So the demons have the destroyed trees. This is a lesser demon, so there must be greater demons, and he's just at the North Undead Asylum. There are other asylums in the south. Since the word is asylum, and based on this looks like, is this a place since this is an asylum, does this mean that this is like a safety place, like a place of safety for the undead? Is it a place to try and heal the undead? Now it's a prison, so did it turn from like a hospital to a prison? A lot of interesting things that we can get from just asking questions, even if we don't have any answers. This hammer is imbued with no special powers, but can merely beat foes to a pulp, providing you have the strength to wield it. So we look at the strength, okay, 46. So the demon was really strong, and stone arch trees must be very heavy. Music's a bit too loud. I'll lower the audio again to 18 a bit. Okay, now let's. Anyone have any questions or comments before we continue? If we came to this at New Game Plus, others asylums don't have demons. Then, well, they could. It doesn't say that. After a certain amount of playthroughs, I stopped playing the game and started reading it. Well, we're going to get to my argument. I'm going to argue that reading the game without play is detrimental to maybe understanding it in full, but I also think it's not in the spirit of the game. That the best way to understand the story and to analyze the story is while we're playing it. It's kind of like when you like if you were to read a book and you'd put notes in the margins that you want to analyze and then maybe go back to it later. You have to reread the part of the book. You have to actively go back and to do that thing that you were doing. But with a video game, I understand that it is more difficult. Okay. Now, let's say this character came from New Game Plus. And this is the first time... Actually, let's step back. Let's say I am a person who just beat Dark Souls, and I didn't get the story. And then I go online and I watch a lore video. And the lore video is going to be lore about the demons. They will tell us, you know, maybe they'll bring up the demon's great hammer as, you know, just here's a little tidbit that some of the demons were at the Northern Undead Asylum. I'm not speaking about any particular lore video. I don't have any in mind. It's been a very long time since I've watched like an introduction, like lore video type of thing. Let's say you were watching a tier list video that's talking about like the demon's great hammer as a weapon, and someone might think, well, you know, the stats on this thing, even if I had the strength to wield it, even if I like pumped my stats to get the amount of strength I needed to even two-hand it, it's really not that great of a weapon. So why am I being rewarded with this weapon for beating this introductory boss before I should have been? Or why am I being rewarded this weapon at New Game Plus? Because that's when most people are going to get it. Well, let's think about what we know by the time we reach New Game Plus. First, let me get to Oscar of Astora so we can get some of his dialogue. By the time you've beaten Dark Souls, you have slayed all of the lords. You've beat the Four Kings, you've beat Gwyn, you've beat the Witch of Chaos, you met at least one of the primordial serpents. Maybe you found Gwendolyn, who was hiding, and learned that there was illusions in the world. You found a lot of their secrets. Maybe you found the stone dragon in Ash Lake. Perhaps you joined a covenant or two, and you learned so much about the world. You did the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, where you went back in time, and you learned that you were the true hero who fought the Abyss all along. So you know a lot. You know a lot. And you know that by the end of the game, you are going to kill Gwyn. And if you played the game a few times, you know that you have a choice. That after you kill Gwyn, you can link the fire, or you can leave and become the Dark Lord. So what does the knight, whose purpose is unknown, who gave us this key, who set us free, what does he tell us?
Oh, you.
Oop, I'm moving all around.
No, Hollow. Thank goodness. I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I, we're both undead. Hear me out, will you?
All right. He has this mission, he's on this journey, but he's gonna die. We're both undead. Let me tell you what I was gonna do.
Regrettably, I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family: thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask. An undead favorite. Oh, and this.
Okay.
Now I'm
So-
farewell. I would hate to harm you after.
Oh, he doesn't want to harm us after death. Thanks, bro. Okay, so the big thing that our friend told us is he gave us information that he came here because there's an old saying in his family that the fate of the undead is to go to the land of Lordran, is to specifically make an exodus from this asylum to go to Lordran and then learn the fate of the undead after ringing bells of awakening. Okay, so he gave us that information. Let me get out of here, and then we'll go to Lordran, and then we're gonna talk about the hammer. Because I think you guys are gonna like it. Did he give me the big pilgrim key too? I wasn't paying attention. Again, if we were gonna do mimic commentary on all of this, you know, we would be here for hours. But we're trying to just we're setting the stage before we get to Eternal Darkness. How are we going so far? Is everyone enjoying this? You liking my little introduction of how to read Dark Souls?
Only in the ancient legends it is
Now we're getting narration from the narrator from the very beginning,
one day an
talking
undead
about
shall
legends, that an undead is going to be chosen. And we get our introduction to the crow.
to leave the undead
So,
asylum in pilgrimage
This knight, who the game first gave us
to the land
an
of the
item
ancient
asking about what was his
lands.
purpose, who was he, why did he free us from this jail with this key, he's telling us about this old saying in his family. Then when we get to the end of the walkway that would surely cause us to fall to our death, this crow. Oh no, we're gonna cover Eternal Darkness in the stream. Don't worry. We're gonna get there very quickly. We get this crow who brings us to Lordran. Now, when we get to Lordran, or should I say, from that night and from that narration, we know that people are aware of some sort of information, whether it's a prophecy, whether it's instruction. They are aware that at some point, an undead is going to leave the asylum and come to Lordran. Now, if this is perhaps, some people have theorized, well, it's made up by the gods for you to do this, or it's made up by, whoever, or it doesn't exist in the first place. Whatever the case may be, this information is out in the world. And when we get through the world, we notice that some characters are preventing us from going places. Particularly, they're preventing us from killing the bosses. We have to kill the bosses from the very beginning of that intro in order to get the end of the game. We have to kill Nito, we gotta kill Seath, we gotta kill the Witch of Chaos, the Witch of Izalith. We have to kill all these characters, take their souls so we can get to the end of the game and kill Gwyn. Alright? Spoiler alert, you gotta kill the named people from the beginning of the game. This is Dark Souls 1. Now, with that perspective, we can also find, if I was to explore, we can find characters that are watching our character. People who are associated with these named characters from the beginning that we're supposed to kill. They're watching our journey, not only just trying to prevent us, but maybe sharing that information. So, considering that these characters know about this information, that an undead is coming to get them, let's look at this item description now. Now we have played through Dark Souls. We know that, some of the information that we have, we know that Gwyn and his Black Knights once went to war with the Chaos Demons of Izalith. We know that Nito, the first of the dead, has a connection to the religion, the Way of Light, and a connection to Gwyn in some way. We know that all of these characters have these connections, that the Seath the Scaleless, he was granted dukedom by Gwyn, and that the four kings of New Londo were granted kingship by Gwyn. So we're getting a lot of connections here. Now let's think about this. There is information that an undead is going to come from the asylum and kill all of the named characters at the beginning. And when we got into New Game Plus, we learned that this demon weapon was built from the stone arch trees. Built from those arch trees way before there was probably, any thought of undead. That this lesser demon is put at the North Undead Asylum. Well, we find, greater demons all throughout the world. If that lesser demon was trying to stop our undead from leaving and killing all these characters, are the demons that we're going to meet later, the demons that were the first bosses, the Taurus demon in Undead Burg, the Capra demon in the lower Undead Burg, are these demons working together to prevent our character from moving through the story? Before they just seemed like monsters, but after I played through the game first, I met these demons, and then when I got to Izalith, I knew that there was culture, and that the demons used to be people, and now the story is really opening up. This demon's great hammer is more than just a weapon that needs too much strength to wield. It's telling a story, and that story that's being told is only available to us after we've beaten the game and seen the world the first time through. And that is kind of the magic of how Dark Souls tutorializes its lore and its story. The first time you play the game, you are not supposed to be aware of what's going on. It's supposed to be confusing. And then when you play it again, you get new information right out of the get-go. The game is telling you that if you return to places that you've been to before and you do something a little bit different, you are going to get a different story. The secrets of the world are going to be revealed to you. And I think that's very cool. It's very meta. It's very meta. Now, speaking of meta, not metaphoric in the chat right now, but meta as in like a meta commentary, meta fiction, that the game is aware that it's a game. It's a piece of art that's aware it's a piece of art. So we're going to go from Jack, and we're going to go back to the Mimic. So the Mimic, he has returned to the undead asylum. And he's going back to his cell that he was freed from. And there's something interesting here. Here's a Black Knight. Now, if I was to come here later in the game, I would know that this Black Knight was a disembodied spirit who was burned in the fires of the kiln of the first flame, and he's a disembodied soul here to just roam forever, unending. But right now, he's guarding the cell. His back is faced to the cell. He does not want someone to get inside of this jail cell. Well, the only person who can come back to this jail cell and get this item is us, the person who was inside of it. So if we start thinking about the world the same way that the dungeon cell key told us to think about the items, we're thinking, who is this knight and what is his purpose? Well, his purpose is to guard this jail cell. Why is he guarding it from us? Well, there must be something inside, and we can see it sitting on that corpse. There's something in there he doesn't want us to have. Well, why doesn't he want us to have it? We're going to have to get the item and figure it out. Also, Dark Souls is really easy, and you could just parry these suckers. Garbage game, not worth playing, just parry simulator. Okay, before we go in there, and we got before we continue with the theorizing, let's check our chat. It is peak gameplay. Oh, hi Jess. Who else is in here? Hi DJ Damsafly. Hi Evan. I don't think I said hi to everyone. Hi Preceptor Pilot. I already said to you. Hi Chancho Wins. I'm seeing a lot of names of people who watch the Mimic commentary. That makes me excited. Oh, I should probably do an advertisement to the Mimic commentary. So let's try. How do I do that? If you're enjoying this type of theorizing and this analysis for Dark Souls and Elden Ring, consider watching my series, The Mimic Commentary, where we play from the beginning to end of Elden Ring, analyzing every single line of text, every single gameplay interaction, every single thing you could possibly think of in that game. Weren't Black Knights burnt in the Chaos Flame? No, so you're confusing it with their weapons. They were burned. Here, I'll have to open up the Black Knight armor, and then we'll continue. This isn't part of the lecture. Black Knight armor, Dark Souls 1. So the Black Knight set is: the knights followed Lord Gwyn when he departed to link the fire, but they were burned to ashes in the newly kindled flame, wandering the world as disembodied spirits ever after. This game, when you talk about the Chaos Flame, this is great swords of the Black Knights who wander Lordran used to face Chaos Demons. So their swords are used to face Chaos Demons, but their armor was burned from the first flame. Now this also gets a little bit interesting too if we wanted to expand that way. If we were going to do Dark Souls theorizing, well, if the Asylum demon was guarding, burned and bodiless, you say. If the Asylum demon is a demon, and he's a Chaos Demon, and he's guarding the Asylum, making sure someone doesn't come out, and now the Black Knights are back here, making sure someone doesn't come back in, that's a lot of fun stuff we could do. Oh yeah, the Burnt Ivory King. Those guys do get burnt by the Chaos Flame. Give me 1 second. Okay. So what was this guy guarding? We come back in here, and the body from before is either gone or moved. The body that was dropped into this cell is... this might be the same body. I'd have to double check if the model is the same. But now we're getting some interesting things here. Our character was imprisoned in this specific cell, and then a new body was put in, and then we left, okay? Now this guy is taking our place. This person within our jail cell is taking our place. So if there was some information about, you know, an undead was going to come from the asylum and he was going to kill all of the bosses, you know, we wouldn't want a jailbreak. Well, it looks like there was a jailbreak. Our guy got out, and they replaced his undead body with someone else's undead body. And, well, maybe he'll come back to the scene of the crime, because that's usually what criminals do. So we come back to the scene of the crime, and what do we get? A peculiar doll. Now, the peculiar doll is the key to enter one of Dark Souls' famous levels, the Painted World. A peculiar doll, strange doll in strange dress. There was once an abomination who had no place in this world. She clutched this doll tightly and eventually was drawn into a cold and lonely painted world. When we get to Anor Londo, we can use this doll to literally enter inside of a painting. The story that is told here is about an abomination who had no place in this world of Lordran. So she clutches the doll tightly and eventually is drawn into the cold and lonely painted world. What is this character that you see on the screen? You could call them a warrior, you can call them undead. But when we break it down, they're just a doll. They're a virtual doll. This is our plaything. You know, I'm using a controller and buttons. I'm using something for the act of play to step inside of this world, to step inside of this video game, and essentially live inside of it. I'm using my imagination to build this world. I'm using my intelligence to try and deduce interactions between characters. I'm trying to live inside of this painted world. And I can only do that with this doll. The game is saying something very important here in this interaction. It's telling us directly that Dark Souls is a piece of art. And it's a piece of art that we get to step into. But we only get to step into this piece of art when we have our peculiar doll. And when we clutch it tightly, we can be drawn into this cold and lonely painted world. This is a cold and lonely painted world. There are no people in this game. It's all ones and zeros. It's all imaginary. However, if you feel like you have no place in this world, the world around us, there is comfort in the art. When we look at how Dark Souls tries to tutorialize how it wants us to interact with the game as a piece of art, if we take it a step further, we start to see how it's trying to tutorialize how the art wants us to interact with ourselves. Because one of the most important parts of analyzing a game like Elden Ring is, or Dark Souls, is that you're not just analyzing what is in the game. You're trying to figure out what is in the gaps that are missing. And the only way to fill those gaps is to fill that with yourself. You do that by clutching the doll and entering this painted world. So we're going to say goodbye to this doll, and we are going to create a new doll in Elden Ring. Because Elden Ring takes it a step further with how it tutorializes how it wants us to interact with the world and its story, and it does it right out of the gate. I'm sorry I called you all lonely or sad. So we got to make a new character. I got to drink some water. Before we continue, actually, let me... Does anyone have any questions or comments? Anyone want to say anything? Any insights? Make you feel any way? You know, we are abominations. I don't think you're an abomination. Because it's... when it comes to talking about these games, you know, the reason why I think so many people love them so much is because they're designed in a way that allows us to put ourselves into the game, into the art, like so many pieces of art can't. Like when you read a book or watch a movie, it is easy to identify with well-written, well-acted, well-performed characters. It's easy to feel what they're feeling. George R. R. Martin is phenomenal at this. Reading A Song of Ice and Fire, or watching Game of Thrones, it's really easy to identify with those characters and feel what they're feeling. But what they do is just them. It's not you. You just have you live in the fantasy to try and be like them. But what makes these games so special is you get to make your character and you get to imagine who they are, what parts of yourself does this character represent? What are the good parts? What are the good qualities of this character? What are the bad qualities of this character? What are the parts of you that you want to put onto this doll? And I think that's why people love these games so much, because it is one of the only pieces of art that so effectively allows the audience to really be inside of the painting along with all of the other characters. It doesn't have as many dialogue choices. It doesn't have as many endings. You know, it doesn't have as much text and lore dumps, but the way that the game is designed, and it is game design, it's how the act of play really sucks you in. Yep. Parlam, Wilhelm talking about I've seen your kind. Every secret must be unearthed. Exactly. That is so like on the nose. He is. When I was replaying Dark Souls 3 for footage and for analysis, that really struck out to me because, you know, in Dark Souls 3 they live in their own painting and they're like we're happy the way it is, and then I'm coming there knowing full well I'm going to destroy everything that makes them happy, all because I'm looking for more secrets. And I've already done it before too. That's another thing. We could talk about the time looping aspect of going into New Game Plus and how replaying the game, we are essentially a time traveler in this story. We know what every interaction could be. We know what the prophecies are by looking up a game guide and seeing how the story is supposed to unfurl, but we still do it anyway. And that's something we could explore later in the future. Preceptor Pilot says, lots of modernist abstract art is meant to be viewed in the same way. Our perception reveals parts of ourselves. The details are meant to be filled in with your identity. Yeah, that's something I've been trying to express in my videos and stuff, but I haven't been able to find the I haven't been able to like know what I was supposed to read to be able to figure that out. So I'll read some modernist abstract art stuff to get more into that. And Chancha wins. Dark Souls 1 will cover many lore gaps of Elden Ring. It's not just Dark Souls 1. Every single one of these games will give you insight into every other one of these games. So I'm replaying Sekiro right now, and within the first hour, there are like direct references to Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and Elden Ring. Like very, very plain references about the nature of the world and things like that, and these repetitive cycles in that nature. You know, the reason why these stories feel like when you play Elden Ring just feels like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and these all feel like the same, as the point of retelling these stories is we're expanding on these ideas over and over and over again, and they balloon into a big game like Elden Ring. Okay. So we did Dark Souls. We remember how the introduction to Dark Souls was, how the characters that we were able to look at, you know, weren't so complex. Now we're getting a game that was co-written by George R. R. Martin, and boy oh boy does it really show, because the complexity of the cultures and who these characters are and what they're wearing and where they come from, that is just like crazy. Okay. It's crazy. Let's this guy's name is going to be Kill Blythe. We're not killing Blythe in this video, but I need to remember that this guy is for killing Blythe. When we compare the character descriptions from Elden Ring to Dark Souls, now we're getting knights exiled from their homes, nomadic warriors that talk about the origins of exceptional techniques, descended from Badland chieftains, scholars who reads fate in the stars, a seer ostracized for prophecies. Holy moly, we're getting a lot of stuff here. If we go to, I think, base template, now we're getting common warrior of the tarnished. The hell's a tarnished? Truth seeker, austere pilgrim, aristocrat, noble blood of the lands between. I don't even know what a lands between is. Legends and heresies, descended from giants, the seas, land of reeds. Oh, yeah, that one's easy. Okay, wait, dragon people, night people who bleed silver, long live seldom bored. Now it's getting really complex and it's getting really confusing. It's very, I can see why people would have trouble jumping into Elden Ring and not understanding it as easily as they could with Dark Souls. But just like Dark Souls, Elden Ring is a game that they want you to play multiple times, and my favorite starting item is the Bewitching Branch. So where Dark Souls began with, you know, the nature of the world, the origins of fighting, and who these factions are, Elden Ring takes a different direction, and it starts up front with saying the fallen leaves tell a story, and then it shows us the story told through paintings. Understanding the history of how Hidetaka Miyazaki uses paintings as a symbol within his games to represent his worlds. Right now, we just made our peculiar doll, and here is our painted world. We are literally being shown this painted world that our doll is going to step into. And it's literally a world. The lands between is this giant world with different biomes and factions and kingdoms and histories, past, present, future, space monsters, you know, you name it. There's a lot of stuff going on. And there's so much stuff going on that the introduction, instead of talking about there was a war against dragons, now we're getting the Elden Ring is shattered. The Queen is missing. There is this event called the Night of Black Knives, and Godwyn the Golden was first to perish. What the hell does that all mean? Now we're getting demigods, offspring, shards of the Elden Ring. Even though these paintings, these vignettes, are maybe not as I don't know, I can't even say that they're not as complex as the introduction to Dark Souls. Like, you can look at every one of these paintings and find so much information. Just like taking that peculiar doll and stepping into the painted world. Every single one of these paintings is rich with detail, narrative, and story waiting to be discovered. Not only is the world of Elden Ring so much larger than the world of Dark Souls or Demon Souls or Bloodborne, but the story is as well, and the gameplay is there too, and so is the community. You know, when I think about Elden Ring, I think has sold 30 million copies, and I think the Dark Souls trilogy has sold maybe, I think it's also 30 million copies. That's, you know, 30 million people who bought Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 combined. So that could be one person who bought all 3 games. Where Elden Ring is just 30 million new people who just got into Elden Ring. Never played Elden Ring, but love watching lore videos to better understand A Song of Ice and Fire. You know, okay, so it's so funny. Gosh, it's so funny, Christy, that you bring up that Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights, because one of my scripts that I've been writing starts with comparing Elden Ring to the Garden of Earthly Delights. And we were talking about that in the Discord. So that's really interesting that you bring that up. That's really interesting. That's kind of time loopy for me. That's so interesting. Well, Meta, I think you find the Dark Souls series more complicated than Elden Ring because you haven't played Dark Souls yet. Once you play Dark Souls, and if you play it like the Mimic commentary, it's gonna be very, very. I think it's gonna be very easy to understand. After doing Elden Ring lore analysis, going back to Dark Souls or the previous games, it's much easier because you're not really burdened by the complexity of George R. Martin's writing. Like, the big thing that separates Elden Ring and the previous games is really, I think, well, it's a few things. It's the introduction of how Miyazaki's game design has changed from Dark Souls to Elden Ring thanks to his collaborations with I think Yuri Tanomura, who directed Dark Souls 2. Yeah, way fewer moving pieces in Dark Souls lore. This isn't going to be for the video, but one thing that I love, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I say that Mikola is a time-traveling god, and he is a god who is more powerful than the Elden Beast, the Elden Ring, and probably even the Greater Will. If you have Shadow of the Erd Tree, or at least pre-order it, you get the Ring of Mikola, and then the ring. So the game is like already coming out of the gate and saying like, Mikola is more powerful than the Elden Ring. But we need to do a lot more theorizing before we get there. So before we get to Eternal Darkness, I want to showcase how Elden Ring tutorializes inspecting the lore. One thing though that is like so important for if you were going to replay Elden Ring and you wanted to do a lore hunting analysis of it, the Recent Items tab is a godsend. It is the best thing that they've ever made. It's the best addition that they've ever added to these games. It makes it so much easier to be able to figure out what's going on because you could just read everything as soon as it comes up. One of my favorite items before we continue, Tarnished Wizen's Finger. A finger of corpse wax so emaciated the bone is visible. It is a relic of those who came before, left to help those who would come after. I think that is just so beautiful. Is it a pre-order bonus? I think you can just get it now. I thought you just get it now. We're not gonna fight this guy. This part isn't relevant to us. If we were to beat the Grafted Scion, we would get additional information that is relevant to the story and to theorizing. But if you want to see what that is, watch the first episode of the Mimic Commentary. Jess says, admittedly post Night Rain, my headcanon has become this is really a sequel to Dark Souls. Elden Ring is ages later. I understand that isn't likely true, but the implications are there. No, it's true. I agree with you. My timeline is currently Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, the painting and the end of Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, The Tarnished are Banished, Sekiro, The Tarnished Return. That's what I got going on right now. I gotta finish replaying Sekiro before I fit in there. But currently Sekiro I have as between the Tarnished being banished and the Tarnished returning. So that means that Japan is canonically in Elden Ring.
After all.
Meta, the dark sign is explained in Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls I don't know, you have to play all three. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Sekiro literally is the land of reeds. Which makes a lot of sense because if you've been watching the Mimic Commentary and we've been going through Caelid and we've been looking at how the Sellians seem to be the originators of the samurai culture of the Tarnished who left and came back, it's very interesting to what happens in Sekiro, specifically in the secret ending, and how that is relevant to Mikola and Ronnie's story. Japan being canon to Elden Ring will always make me laugh. Well, it's funny. Okay, so Elden Ring it upgraded its tutorial. If you go into the Cave of Knowledge, jump down the hole ahead and you will find the Cave of Knowledge. There you can learn more about game controls and basic actions, as well as other tips that may be helpful during the adventures in the lands between. Okay, very cool. We can go do a gameplay tutorial, but that's not why we're here. We want to see a real gameplay tutorial. We want to see how does the game tutorialize its lore. Does any students in the class know where I'm going? Does anyone know what I'm going to show us? Have we made it to Jargberg in the Mimic playthrough? Yeah, we made it to that, I think, is episode 50... episode 50-something we went to Jargberg. We have to go back to Jargberg and talk to Jarbaron again, but we're not going to go back until after we finish Caelid. And we're almost done with Caelid. That is in the members only so far. Currently, the Mimic commentary, as of right now, I believe is at episode 70. It releases 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And early access for members is about 50 episodes ahead. Okay, let's skip all this stuff. Guidance of Grace, we'll talk about that once we get to Eternal Darkness. We have to look at the tutorial. The dark sign being forced is found students in the class. Hey, I used to, if you don't know the history of this channel, I used to play a character, Preceptor Jacobus Mimicus, where I did that character specifically to frame, like, literally being educational within like a character who lived inside of the world of Elden Ring to, educate the, people who are also stuck at, like, the academy, to show them, like, what's going on in the world. And I thought that was, like, a fun way to limit the character's knowledge and what we were sharing, because one of the things that I think is important for analyzing these games is it's perfectly valid to analyze art any way that you want to. But since, these games are difficult games to play, they're also difficult games to understand. There is a specific way that the game wants you to play it, and there's a specific way that the game wants you to understand it. Are we allowed to talk about things in the Mimic that we haven't reached in the Mimic commentary yet? I mean, you can, but I don't know. If the Mimic commentary exists, and we'll talk about this when we get it. It's the Prophet's Blindfold. It exists for my benefit. If you start talking about things that we haven't gotten to in the Mimic commentary yet, you are going to stunlock me, and we're not going to be able to get to Eternal Darkness. And the goal is Eternal Darkness. I can't turn off these tutorials because they might be useful. Okay. Here is how Elden Ring. This is Elden Ring's dungeon cell key. Okay, this is how it tutorializes its world building. This is how it tutorializes its environmental storytelling. Immediately, the game is pulling us. If we just look at how the game is designed, it is pulling us to follow this path, to fight those enemies who just had torches out, they didn't look threatening, and to come into here. Our vision is narrowed, we can't even see the Erd tree, we run up here, we're looking straight ahead, and the first thing that catches our eye is directly to our left. We're seeing a soldier looking over a dead body and a broken cart. And then we see, let's take his stuff. Okay, we can analyze that if we want, but we're not. Then this path continues forward. These guys are still inspecting and investigating what's happening here. We're finding destruction all the way. So the game is telling us a story right here. This guy with this cart died somehow, and this soldier is investigating why. We follow the ruins. No, I was thinking stunlock before then. I watched some streamers, and I know about stunlocking. But I did watch info video. Then we continue more destruction and soldiers checking what's going on here, and it leads directly to this cave. So we're getting the game is literally, you know, we have the guidance of grace, which is saying, go this way. Here's how you do gameplay. Follow the story. Go with the guidance of grace and all the lore behind it. But now, here is another guidance of grace, essentially. Here's breadcrumbs saying, go into this cave, look at this story. Okay, these people were, something in this cave killed them. What was in this cave that killed them? Talking about meeting Kath within Eternal Darkness. You're getting too far ahead. You're getting way too far ahead. Wait, why are we gonna kill Blythe? We're not killing. I'm gonna use this character in the future to kill Blythe. The reason why we're gonna kill Blythe is Blythe. When you kill Blythe at the Mistwood Ruins, he talks about he's one of the only enemies or one of the only NPCs who will respawn and remember that you killed him, and he will make mention about how you can't kill a shadow. That is a piece of evidence that we use to show why was Marika's sole need for Malekith to be the vessel for Destined Death, or to lock away Destined Death, because as a shadow he cannot die, so put Destined Death inside of him because it can't kill him because he's a shadow. So that's why we have to kill Blythe, so we can get that interaction. But I need multiple characters to be able to show that. Okay, so we get inside of the cave, we find all of the, you know, leadings into the cave, and what do we have here? Oh, the wolves killed Godric's knights. The Godric soldiers. We know they're Godric soldiers, we're just skipping ahead. So we know, we could just say, let me go back. Let me rewind. Let me rewind. I don't want to say Godric soldiers yet. So we come into the cave, and we're getting the conclusion to the story. The soldiers were using this cave to camp out, and then these wolves came and attacked them, and they killed them. That seems like it's all done there. But we go further into the cave, and we think, why did the wolves, was there any extra reason? Why did the wolves attack the soldiers? Were the wolves just living in this cave? Did the soldiers antagonize the wolves? Well, we get to the boss, and we get Beastman of Farum Azula, and he was eating one of these soldiers. So now we have something very interesting going on here. We have a beast man who seems to be dictating what these wolves do, and he wanted them to fight these guys. Okay, he wanted to fight these soldiers. So let's kill this guy, and then let's talk about the deeper symbolism that we're gonna get here. Ooh. Wow, very cool. If I die to the beast man, that's embarrassing. Alright, cool, bleed proc. Okay, so the game has taught us that its story is going to be revealed through the environment. It led us into this cave, and it told us a little vignette. It told us about the soldiers who were attacked by wolves, and the wolves were led by the Beastman of Farum Azula. Is this going to get edited to a video or left as a VOD? It's going to be both. The stream is still going to be available for everyone to watch, but I'm going to edit it into two videos. One video is going to be the Eternal Darkness Mimic Commentary episode, and then another video about how Elden Ring and analyzing art or something like that. I got to decide what I want to do. So it's going to be both. So one of the big things about Elden Ring, and really all of Miyazaki's games, but Elden Ring the most, is how often symbols are used to represent things. Now, obviously in this character, we don't have the tabard that tells us what the tree and the beast represent. But let's say this is New Game Plus and I have all my items and I have the wiki. I know that wolves are representative of the Carian Royal Covenant. So if I look at I'm looking on my computer right now. I gotta look at Carian. So when we get to Shadow of the Erd Tree, Royal Covenant. In Shadow of the Erdtree, you can get the Wolf Crest Shield, a finely made blue shield featuring an engraving of a wolf under the moon. The wolf is the beast of the Carian Royal Covenant, a symbol of the moon's pride that none can forget. Okay, so... Oh, I know, Meta. I know the colors are different. I know the colors are different. You don't need to tell me. We're not getting... Yeah, exactly. We're not getting into this right now. So, in Shadow of the Erdtree, we get direct confirmation within the text that the wolf is a symbol of the Carian Royal Covenant and the moon's pride. So when we think wolves in the game, when we step into this painting and we're looking at this painting, we're looking at the painting, we're thinking of the symbolism. When we see wolves, we have to think the Carians. We have to think the pride of the moon. If we were to look at the surcoat of these knights here, this would be the tree and beast surcoat. The surcoat depicts the distant Erdtree and the beast region, an emblem of the golden lineage. Both are symbols of glory now past. So the wolves, representing Caria, fought the Erdtree and the golden lineage. Who was leading the wolves? It was a beast man from Farum Azula, beast man of Farum Azula. So the leader of the Carians, the symbol of the Carians, in this cave, in the very first cave that you can come into the game, is a beast man. Well, what do we think about beast men? What we know about Elden Ring? Well, we have the misbegotten; those are kind of beast men. We have the crucible; those are kind of like beast men. The omen; those are kind of beast men. But I really think, or I should say, but the kicker is the Flame Drake Talisman. That this character, this specific character, dropped the Flame Drake Talisman, depicting a red ancient dragon and associating it with fire. Who in Elden Ring is associated with fire? The Fire Giants. Well, when we get the Fire Giants remembrance, if we get the Fire Giants whip, what is the name of this? It is, I don't remember the Fire Giants whip. What is that? Give me a second. I got my text dump open because there are so many items in the game. There it is. If we think about giants' red braid, every giant is red of hair, and Radagon was said to have despised his own red locks. Perhaps that was a curse of their kind. So when I think red, I'm thinking Leonine Misbegottens. I'm thinking Fire Giants. I'm thinking Radagon and his red hair. And we're getting a red ancient dragon. What? What is... Gosh, it's so silly. If... sorry, I can't believe I'm doing this. If we look at the name dragon, or if we look at the name Radagon and we reorganize the letters, we could get the anagram a dragon. So Radagon with his red hair could be representing a red dragon. Can't go back to... So we're getting that he's also tied to... Not only is Radagon tied to this anagram of a dragon, we can find dragon symbolism all throughout areas associated with Radagon, like the frozen dragon that we find in the Cave of the Forlorn, or his Radagon statue at Stormcaller Church. We think of red, we think of the Leonine Misbegottens who carry his sword. We think of his red wolves, the red wolves of Radagon. So red is tied to Radagon just intrinsically. And he's also tied to beasts. He's also tied to beast men. He's tied to so many things. This amalgamation of all that Radagon comes to as a character, we find in this cave. Who was Radagon? Well, he was the husband of Queen Renala. Queen Renala of Caria, who's represented by the wolves. So we're seeing that Radagon and Caria, the wolves, took down the Erd Tree and the Golden Lineage. That is the symbolism we are getting in this cave. We don't have to do any other lore theorizing. We don't have to look at any more items. All we had to do was just play through the game, pay a little bit of attention of where some enemies show up, what are some things that show up in those caves, and then come back to the very beginning of the story, to the very first cave that we play the game, and then we get a little bit of insight. Now we could start asking questions. How did Radigan and how did Karya take down the Erd Tree and the Golden Lineage? Well, we have the Knight of Black Knives. We have Ranni, who is the daughter of Radigan and Rennala, who assassinated Godwyn the Golden of the Golden Lineage, whose death created Deathroot and spread throughout the Great Tree root system, bringing those who live in death. And what do you know? We're doing all of this great analysis, great detective work. We're doing all this lore investigation, and all we had to do was come into the very first cave and look at the symbolism of what was shown to us. Now imagine if you were to do that with every single item in the game from start to finish. What would that look like? What would that look like? Well, that brings us to Eternal Darkness. If you haven't been following... Oh yeah, there's also, Meta brings up, there are silver fireflies laying by the wolves. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to it. Maybe we will. I didn't even think about the silver fireflies. There's so much symbolism in these games. So before we go to Eternal Darkness theorizing, let me just take a little break. Let me drink some water. What do you all have to say? Let me put on my Mimic's Veil. How long have we been going? We've been going for about an hour. Oh, good. Okay. We're making good time. We're making a lot of good time. Oh, is there a way, I think there's a way for me to, can I gift memberships? How do I gift memberships? How do I do that? I gotta figure out how to do that. I want to give memberships to people. Oh, here we go. Free. Send a highlighted message as a member. Membership gifting. Okay. Oh, I can send. I'm gonna send free. I'm gonna gift memberships. Which membership does that give you? So with that membership, I don't know what tier of membership it gives you, but if it gave you the silver tier, which is tier 2, you now have access to the early access episodes of the Mimic Commentary, where we try to look at the game from that perspective. We're gonna solve the entire story with them. That's right, Nick. We're all of Elden Ring is gonna be figured out. One episode. We'll do another. I can do 5 other. I think I can do 10 gifts a month. So I don't know what else. I don't. Yeah, whatever. Any questions on that cave? Check the corpses on. Okay, no. Any questions? Any comments? While I drink my water. Because we're really gonna start ramping up. We're gonna get into Mimic Commentary, and we're gonna be talking about last episode. So if you haven't been watching the Mimic Commentary, if you're not a member, in the last episode of the Mimic Commentary for Early Access, we found almost definitive proof that the Carians are Albinorics. The Albinoric shield and the Carian Knight shield is really the big one. But we've been doing this. We've been building this throughout the entire Mimic Commentary. But we're not. I don't think we're going to be talking about that. We might talk about that, but what we're really going to be talking about this episode is Eternal Darkness. Now this is a big one. Just give me a moment, everybody. I need to take a little break. Gotta start writing on my walls now. My schizo notebooks are full. And you don't need a schizo notebook. You don't need it. You can figure it out. The power. So we'll jump into this. So in the Mimic commentary, the rules for the Mimic commentary are this: we can only do theorizing based on the items in our inventory or information that we have received in game. I use a text document to be able to read text that I've read that we've missed that or dialogue that we've done before. But the goal of looking at the story in this way, by limiting our scope from what we can talk about, how much is membership that allows me to see all membership Mimic commentary videos? That is, I think it's $1.99 or $2.99. That's the second tier. So if anyone's curious about being a member, I have 4 tiers for membership. The first tier is 99 cents a month. That gets you early access to every mainstream video a few days before it comes out. It gets you colors in the Discord. It gets you emojis on the channel. It gets you all that. If you go to the second tier, the silver tier, you get early access to the Mimic commentary as they're produced. So the Mimic commentary comes out 3 days a week, and they're about 5 months or 50 episodes behind the current. So Mimic commentary right now just finished the Albinoric Village. From there, it's going to do Caria Manor. It hasn't done the Mimic commentary so far in the live episodes, hasn't done Caria Manor yet, hasn't done the Academy, hasn't done the Eastern Coast, and it hasn't touched Caelid yet. So 50 episodes in, we finished Town of Sellia, and we got to the Swamp Lookout Tower. I don't intend to be rude, but Elden Ring is kind of a game about fighting people with various physical disabilities. I would argue that Elden Ring, most of those people with physical disabilities are like much stronger than your character. So it really, they, as Meta says, and yet they still beat our butts most of the time. So I want to express the importance of the Prophet's Blindfold. Now, at the very beginning of the Mimic commentary, the rules are as follows. We can only use information in our inventory or that we've experienced in the game so far to do our theorizing. I've played this game many times. I've watched so many lore videos. I've read so many posts. I've run a Discord that has people doing their theorizing. I am overexposed to Elden Ring. I've read nearly everything that George R. Martin has ever written. I've played nearly everything that Hidetaka Miyazaki has ever made, except for his VR game Deracine. I'm going to play that in the future. So I know too much about this game. And because I know so much about it, I know how it ends, I know who the bosses are, I know what the big reveals are, I am almost blinded by how much I know about this game. And it's not just me. You don't have to read all these books and play all these games to also have this effect. If you've played through Elden Ring once, and you've beat every boss, you beat most of the, you beat all of the major bosses, you did the major quest lines, maybe you didn't do every single cave or dungeon, but you did most of it, you also know too much about this game. So we put on the Prophet's Blindfold. We picked the Prophet's class because canonically, the Prophet knows how the game ends. The Prophet starts with Catchflame, that the sinister prophecy of burning the Erd Tree. The Prophet knows how the story is going to end, but they have to wear a blindfold. They have to limit what they can see because they know too much of what's going to happen. So the reason why we do this type of theorizing, the reason why the Mimic commentary is designed around showing how the game can be experienced when you break down every little piece of gameplay and text and visual, is to expose the richness and the depth that is put into the storytelling. And when I say the storytelling, I mean, how is information revealed to us? What we learn? How does the story change? When we first, come through Limgrave and then we go through the Weeping Peninsula, what do we learn in Raya Lucaria and Liurnia that changes when we get to Caelid? Like, what is the new information? What is the storylines that are being built? We see all of these different icons, and this kind of looks like a jumble. But if we look at the Guidance of Grace, we see that there is a path. There is this story that's being told to us, that it wants us to do specific things. Why does it want us to do this? Why does it want us to do this in this specific order? Why does Grace want us to go here, then here, then here, then here? What is it that the story wants us to learn? What does it want us to see? If you didn't pick up every single Etereal Leaf, you won't understand the story. Well, Nick, you should thank Meta for that, because he's the reason I pick up the Etereal Leaf. So I'm going to give you an example. Something that we're theorizing in the Mimic commentary before we start doing Eternal Darkness, and I give you a recap of Celia. If we were to look at our crafting materials, now I think everyone is aware of the Mimics. Everyone who's played Elden Ring knows about the Mimics. The Mimic tier is the most popular Spirit Ash of the game. You can find memes about how people are like, the Mimic tier summon, which makes a copy of your character, really beat the game for them. If you wanted to respec your character, you had to use a larval tier, the core of a creature of mimicry known as a silver tier, as much as a substance as it is a living organism. So we're getting this concept of mimicry. When we go through the game, the first instance that we find a larval tier is right here. There's this guy, there's this noble. When you kill the noble, he turns into a rune bear. And then when you kill the rune bear, it gives you a larval tier. The second one you can get is when you go down into Shifa River. You can buy it from the abandoned merchant. The third one you can get is when you find this crawfish that is walking through the water. When you kill him, he turns into a grafted scion, and then you can get a larval tier. You can find a larval tier in the village of the Albinaurics. You can buy a larval tier from Pydia in Caria Manor. And you can get a larval tier from a troll, or from a noble, who after you defeat him, he turns into a troll with a flaming sword, and then you get a larval tier. So, if you're just playing the game normally, you know that there's shapeshifters, and they can look similar to other things. You go down into Shifa River, and you start finding more things that are kind of peculiar. On the top of the world, we see herba, but then we pick up dew-kissed herba. It's an herb that grows in and around the False Night and the Eternal City. Well, it's an exact copy of herba, so it's kind of silvery. You find mushrooms all over the place, and then you go underground, you find melted mushrooms. It drips with a viscous fluid that behaves much like oil. Then you get the Albinauric blood clot. We're looking at the order that we got this information. So first we get the stuff in Shifra. Then by the time we get to Liurnia, about halfway through Liurnia, about the Academy Gate Town, this is when you can start fighting Albinaurics. And then you get their blood clots. Albinaurics are life formed made by human hands. Okay, so this is artificial life. These are artificial humans. And their blood clot kind of looks like beast blood. So the game is kind of training you already that some things will look like other things, but they'll be copies. They'll be fakes. If you were to replay Elden Ring and you were to find Trina's lilies, who do you think these lilies belong to? Obviously, you would think they belong to Saint Trina. Why wouldn't they? You even get to meet Saint Trina in Shadow of the Erd Tree. But what's interesting is, in Shadow of the Erd Tree, there is a third lily. And it looks more like Miquella's lily than it does Trina's lily. Why does the Trina's lily look like Miquella's lily, but not quite? Why is it kind of off? Why does the melted mushroom kind of look like a mushroom, but it's off? Why does the dew-kissed herba kind of look like herba, but it's a little bit off? Why does strips of white flesh taken from bloodless creatures, kind of look like slivers of meat? Beast Blood and Albinoric Blood Clots. Why do these things look similar but kind of different? So the reason why it's important to engage with the game in this way, because we have our biases. We would say, well, obviously, in the story, St. Trina, we know, I've played Shadow of the Erd Tree, St. Trina is the divested half of Mikola. But that doesn't tell us anything about Trina's lilies. If we were to look at where we found Trina's lilies, we find Trina's lilies all throughout Limgrave, find Trina's lilies all throughout the Weeping Peninsula. We find Trina lilies all throughout, we find them all throughout Liurnia. I didn't mark them all because I forgot to. But then we also find Mikola's lilies. We get to Caria Manor, and there's Mikola's lilies all over Caria Manor, but then one Trina's lilies by Ronnie. And it starts getting, like, weird and interesting. Like, okay, why are they putting the lilies in different spots? Why do they look differently? And why is it that the third lily, that looks like an exact copy of Mikola's lily, is in Shadow of the Erd Tree? Well, I have my own theories, but I don't know yet, because I haven't gotten to that part in the game, playing the game in this way. So my goal with the Mimic commentary and playing this way is to not only show you how you can replay Elden Ring, even if you think you know the story or know the lore, even if you think there's questions that you could never possibly think could be answered, that by replaying the game and playing through it slowly, you can find those answers. And not only could you find those answers, you're going to be the one who's creating those answers. You're going to be the one who is having that accomplishment. You are going to be the one who is putting the doll inside of the painting and saying what the doll does. And that is the magic of Elden Ring. So that was just a Mimic commentary explanation. Now we're going to do Celia. The greatest item in the game, the Albinoric Bloodclot. Also, thank you, Paralam, for becoming a larval tier. Thank you, Meta, for saying I'm the best. Infa is like, I feel like Infa and I are like two sides of the same coin, where I am order and he is chaos. Like, the way he sees the game is, if this is how I imagine Infa sees Elden Ring. If you were to pop his eye socket, you would see the frenzy flame coming out of his eyes, because he's just so crazy. Crazy in a good way, not crazy in like his theories are bad, just like the way that he does his connections and does his theorizing. Where me, I'm like, no, we have to put on our blindfold, we have to take the game slowly, we have to see the order that it presents its information to us, we have to do it in the correct order, we have to be orderly. So that is like, we're like the both sides of the same coin there. So if you watch me and Infa, you'll figure out all of Elden Ring, probably. Yes, you have to play with a fresh character. Play with a fresh character. Okay, and this is another thing that we did for the Mimic commentary. You can start with so many gifts. Start with the Bewitching branch, okay? Start with the Bewitching branch. Think about the story of Elden Ring when you can only look at items in your inventory, and the Bewitching branch is one of them. Because it's the earliest way to get Empyreans, Mikola's Love, unalloyed gold, making temporary allies. That really enhances the theorizing. Oh yeah, and only use your telescope. Always have your telescope. Okay. Now we are going to do our we're gonna do, oh wait, I wanna share something in the Discord that's pretty funny. Also, join the Discord. I think there might be in the description. Mimic Infa spoils the Mimic commentary sometimes. You've already played the game. I've told Infa before how, a quote from Game of Thrones, Jon and Arya are going to be separated. Jon is going to the Wall, Arya is going to King's Landing, and she's upset that they're going to be splitting up. You know, she's gonna miss her brother, he's gonna miss her sister, and he says something along the lines of like, you know, different roads sometimes lead to the same castle. So, you know, it depends on which way you go. Thank you, Eric, for becoming a silver tier. Okay, so in the last few episodes of the Mimic commentary, we came to Sellia, Town of Sorcery. And this was a place I've been hyping up for such a long time because how the Sellians just give us so much information, all the secrets that they're hiding, who these people are, and what they have to do with the story, and how they're beating the crap out of me. We're going to have to do a recap on what we learned about the Sellians up until this point, because the way that I like to do my theorizing and the way that I like to be presenting the lore and story of Elden Ring is how a story presents it, the order in which we receive that information. By just telling you what the information is really robs it of the context of why that information is so important, especially when we're going to be looking at a item like Eternal Darkness. When we look at the spell Eternal Darkness, I'm going to get hit by that ball, aren't I? No, I dodged it. It has words like despair and ruin in its item description. Those are very heavy, emotionally charged pieces of language that that should make us think very deeply about what the story is trying to tell us. We also have to think in context of where this item is found and what we had to do to get to this point. Particularly, we had to do Millicent's questline. Oh, you don't have to do it, but generally you will do Millicent's questline, where she is someone who is rotting in despair. She has this sickness. However, you give her an unalloyed gold needle, and then she learns that she has the power within herself to face her destiny and, you know, keep moving forward and keep moving forward. And I gotta beat up these nerds who are trying to beat me up. And don't worry, we'll talk about all these guys. Nick, you know the order of information is important because you've been watching the Mimic commentary. I have you are part of Mimic commentary propaganda. You've seen the magic of the Mimic commentary. Okay. We had 2 Lazuli Conspectus guys and an Olivianus Conspectus guy. So we traveled all through Celia, we traveled all through Caelid. We had a bunch of invisible guys trying to stop us and fight us. Then we get to this guy over here. We get to this Bloodhound Knight. He is guarding this jail cell. And he's really beating me up. Okay. We get into the jail cell, and we find this character. And on that character, we got the spell Eternal Darkness. Where are our spells? Nope, there they are. Okay. Hi, Kate. Miss you. Haven't talked to you in so long. Okay, so we get Eternal Darkness. Before we do our timeline of the information we learned about the Sellians, let's look at this item. First, let's think about its name, Eternal Darkness. The first thing that should jump out at us is the word eternal. Eternal comes from oh wait, I hear fire department. Let me just wait for them to pass by. Okay. So let's say we are analyzing this item in a vacuum. We are not doing Mimic commentary rules. We're not just looking at the order of information. We're just trying to think about this item in particular and what is it trying to tell us. Our first is the name, Eternal Darkness. So we break that down into 2 things. We get Eternal and Darkness. What do we think of for Eternal? Well, we have Marika the Eternal. We have the Eternal Cities. If we think about our other items, if you were to get the Talisman Pouch, which is given to you, one of them is given to you by Enya, you learn that finger readers are said to live lives eternal. So Eternal Darkness should make us think about Marika, should make us think about the Eternal Cities. It should make us think about the Erd Tree was once thought to be perfect and eternal. That comes from the medallion, the Cerulean Seed Talismans. The Erd Tree was once perfect and eternal. But the main thing we should be thinking about one of our primary characters, Marika, her title, Marika the Eternal. Now we have Darkness. Okay, well, what do we think about, if we're just looking at all the items that we think of in the game, we think about Darkness. Well, the first Darkness item that pops up to me is the spell darkness. We have a spell called darkness, so maybe we should be thinking about the spell darkness. And this spell darkness, it kind of has misty haze to it. That makes me think of the misty dark haze that we find in the Divine Towers. It makes me think about when you touch Destined Death, there is darkness that comes from it after defeating Malekith. It makes me think of the Sword of Darkness that you can get in Shadow of the Erdtree. So we're getting two things from the title. We're getting more than two things. We have two words from the title, but just from the words, eternal and darkness, we're making connections all throughout the game. The darkness smell has to do with the round table hold. It has to do with the two fingers. It also has to do with the Sword of Darkness, which has to do with Ra'u and the Blackstone civilization, the ruins that are built all through the world. Eternal, we think America, we think finger readers, we're thinking eternal cities. We're thinking a lot of things right now. Map fragments also have descriptions. Yes, they do, but we're not doing map fragments right now. We're doing eternal darkness. Now, let's go down to the item. Now we're going to look at the item. This is also very important. What do we see when we look at the item? Well, it shows that it's space-like, it's starry. It looks like it's a black hole being warped into. But what really jumps out at me, is that it kind of looks like an eye. Okay? That eternal darkness is now being associated with eyes. It's actually, wait, there's one, I did eternal and darkness. I didn't even put eternal darkness together. I have to go back. I'm so sorry, everybody. There's one other thing for eternal darkness that we should think of. It's the briars of sin. The guilty, their eyes gouged by thorns, lived in eternal darkness. There they discovered the blood star. So with eternal darkness, now we think guilty, sin, eyes being gouged out, blood star. So many things that we can theorize from there. But we're not going to go there. We're just making one step of association, okay? If we were to do our theorizing to continue, we would do another step of association with all of these different things. But right now, we're just doing how we're breaking this item down. Okay, now we're looking at the item. It looks like space, it looks like stars, it looks like a black hole, and it looks like an eye. Now, since it looks like, space and stars, we start thinking about all the things that have to do with that. Our meteors, our falling stars, stars guide fate, maybe the moon, all of these celestial things. But what really jumps out at me is that it looks like an eye. So what items look like eyes in Elden Ring? Well, as Ian points out, the Iris of Occultation, and the other Iris, I don't remember what it's called right now. Who else said the Oh, Clue says kind of like the microcosm. Yeah, so fleeting microcosm also looks like an eye. And if we had the fleeting microcosm spell, we could start thinking about what are the symbolisms of microcosm and how does that relate to eternal darkness? What other things look like eyes? Well, now should we start looking at eyes in our items? Could the moon kind of look like an eye? Does the Karin Glintblade, is that supposed to be an eye? Is the gravity well, is this supposed to look like an eye? If we look at Meteorite and Eternal Darkness, are these supposed to be similar? The great the great oracular bubble, is that supposed to kind of look like an eye? So there's a lot of things that we can look at. The flame of the Fell God, is that supposed to look like an eye? Well, the Fell God, when I think of the fire giants, if I think prophetically, when I say think prophetically, I mean I'm thinking about information we don't have yet in the Mimic commentary. Is that supposed to look like an eye? Is this Order's blade, is this ring right here, is that supposed to look like an eye? Is the two-finger sigil with the heel, is that supposed to look like an eye? Okay, so when we start also going to eyes, we have to think of Frenzy. This has to do with eyes. This is Flame of Frenzy's coming from the caster's eyes. This is what builds up madness. The grapes look from the Frenzy Flame. Those look like eyes. So we're seeing eyes all over the place. Where is our grape? We look at our yellow ember. This is an ember taken out of the eye socket of a corpse, and it's an eye. And inside of that, you can see the Flame of Frenzy, the yellow Frenzy Flame, which also kind of looks like an eye. So we're getting a lot of associations and the symbolism with eye. This particular eye saw eternal darkness. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I see. This eye is seeing eternal darkness. So what does eternal darkness look like? before we continue, anyone else have? I want to read. I want to look in the class. Bep, grant us eyes. Yes. If we think of Bloodborne, the Cosmic Eye Watcher badge. So if you're someone who's familiar with the previous games within the Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, style of games, Miyazaki's games, then you could we start thinking about, well, what are the eyes that show up in those games? And the big one is Bloodborne. Grant us eyes on the inside, the Cosmic Eye Watcher badge from the choir. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we could start thinking about that you don't have to go you're just looking at one spell. We're just looking at one item right now. And we're just thinking about, what do we know? What do you know about these games? What do you know about eyes? We could start thinking about the symbolism of an eye. Well, so this is our perception of the game. This is how we are seeing this piece of art. If two people could stand in front of one piece of art and get 1,000 different things from the painting. Two people can look at one painting and have 1,000 different feelings. Same thing with Elden Ring. Same thing with this video game. But in this particular moment, with this item, they want us to look at Elden Ring as if we were looking in eternal darkness. Let's think symbolically. What does eternal darkness mean? Now that we have this eye symbolism and we have the name eternal darkness, well, eternal, forever, no beginning, no end. Darkness, that makes me think of ignorance. You could be in the dark about something. You don't understand what's going around you. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know what's happening before. You don't know what's happening right now. It also makes me think of, darkness as maybe symbolism in Dark Souls. The dark soul of man is dark. There's the abyss that is dark. As someone personally who has had depressive episodes, eternal darkness also evokes what depression could feel like living in eternal darkness. Like there's no hope for the future. The past is just a wash. It's just terrible. So when I'm looking at this item now I'm thinking, okay, we're looking from the perspective of someone who's seeing the world maybe from, either from ignorance or through a negative emotion, from a negative emotional space. And before we were tying this to our characters, and our main character is America the Eternal. So this item could be telling us, let's look at the perspective of the story from America's perspective, and look at it either from a perspective of ignorance or look at it from a perspective of despair and ruin. We haven't gotten those lines yet, but I know they're coming. Christy, as a non-player but a Song of Ice and Fire reader, I'm seeing the others and Children of the Forest parallels. Yes, I think you're absolutely right to see that. Kate says Doom goggles. These are Doom goggles. Yeah, you have to put on your Doom goggles. Just like speaking outside of the video, the Eternal Darkness theorizing was something I was excited for and also scared to do, because when you have to put yourself into the painting, when you have to take your peculiar doll and put them into the painting and then think of that world with them, what's going to come up? What feelings could come up? Personally, I'm in a good space right now. I got my issues all sorted out. We're good at the moment, so I can look at eternal darkness and I can think about these things and feel very comfortable to them, or feel very comfortable confronting them. Oh, yes. Eternal darkness, as in beast within fever dream. Yes, just like Damien, was it Damien Julian? Oh, goodness, wait. I keep forgetting I keep forgetting his name. Where's the book? If you need to read a George R. R. Martin book, read this one. Read Fever Dream. This, as a side note, Fever Dream is one of Miyazaki's favorite book. Miyazaki loves this book so much that when he became president of From Software, he made every new employee read Fever Dream. This book is so important to understanding any of Miyazaki's works. Not just because it's written by George R. R. Martin, but because it's influential to him. What's the character's name? I forget his name. Give me a second. Gotta find a chapter that actually focuses on him. His name, Julian. Damon Julian. That's the beast. Does Eternal Darkness actually absorb magic, or does it just orbit it? We're gonna go into Celia, and we're gonna cast the spell. What else? Oh, we're getting John Fever. Yeah, John Fever. No, it's York. Well, we're gonna use it when we go into the to the town. Okay, so we could be thinking about this item from the perspective of Marika. Either Marika is in ignorance, or maybe she is in a negative headspace. So, Forbidden Sorcery of Sellia, Town of Sorcery. So this piece of magic, Eternal Darkness, is forbidden to the Sellians. Why could it be forbidden? We're going to break down each line of text. We're going to take it slowly. Why could it be forbidden? Without even reading further, just knowing our connections, we knew about, well, the people who live in Eternal Darkness, they discovered the Blood Star. So could it be forbidden in Celia? Because it hides information. By being in Eternal Darkness, do you learn something you're not supposed to learn? Do you see something you're not supposed to see? Why is it the Forbidden Sorcery of Celia? Is it because this originates in Celia, or is it because the Cellians have this knowledge from somewhere else, and now it's forbidden? Did the Cellians witness this magic? Did the Cellians use this magic? Why is it forbidden specifically? Well, so I guess since it says Forbidden Sorcery of Celia, Town of Sorcery, that makes it seem like Celia is the originators of the Forbidden Sorcery, and they're also its gatekeeper. Since we found it in a prison cell that was being guarded, that makes me think it's something that maybe was used once, and we don't want to use it again. Creates a space of darkness that draws in sorceries and incantations. Okay, so a space of darkness, we're getting back to that darkness thing. A space of darkness, a space of kind of nothingness, a space of no light, a space where there is no light, darkness. And it draws in sorceries and incantations. So Eternal Darkness treats sorceries and incantations as equals. They're equals in this regard. When we think about our character sheet, we have to upgrade our vigor to enhance our bodily strength. We have to enhance our mind to have more FP to be able to cast spells. Generally, we enhance our intelligence to cast sorceries, and we use our faith to cast miracles. If you do Thops's questline and get Thop's Barrier, the lifelong pursuit of Thops the Bloodstone, he learned how to create a magical force field that deflects sorceries and incantations. Future generations will learn. They will know the foolishness of the sneering sorcerers who ridiculed this theory, little realizing that this was in fact a discovery worthy of a new conspectus of the Academy. So, Thops learned how to deflect sorceries and incantations, and that was worthy of a new conspectus at the Academy. Eternal Darkness, this forbidden sorcery, draws in sorceries and incantations, so perhaps Thops was touching on some forbidden knowledge. People didn't recognize how close he was to this truth. He could have made essentially a black hole within the Academy, and that would have been a great discovery, but also a really bad day. So the big thing here that jumps out at me is that it draws in sorceries and incantations. It is indiscriminate between sorceries and incantations. Now, does that mean Eternal Darkness is so powerful it can just ignore the differences between the two? Or is it that there is a secret truth about sorceries and incantations that they're not so different at their core that Eternal Darkness can draw them in? Preceptor Pirate says, that's the spiral motif I see in Eternal Darkness, which is also a really great call, that we're seeing the spiral within the eye. Yeah, we could see the spiral perfectly within this, and spirals appear all over Elden Ring. I don't think I have any items currently within our inventory that show the spiral particularly well. So far in the Mimic commentary, the best things that we have with spirals are the Guardian Sword Spear here. This has a pretty good spiral. The Golden Halberd has a good spiral. Do I have any items with good spirals? Usually they appear on armor pretty well. But I don't really have much of the spiral stuff yet. However, the spiral is going to be important for Eternal Darkness Theorizing when we get to Deeper Depths. Part of this, just so if you're watching this stream right now, when we're gonna do Mimic commentary theorizing, and then we're gonna go onto my time traveler character, and we're gonna do theorizing with more information. So this isn't just gonna be an ignorance episode. We're also going to look at Eternal Darkness with information from later in the game too. Is the darker blue meant to be interpreted as invisible, like how many enemies won't dodge? So wait, before I read the last line, I want to go through your questions because you guys are you're saying really cool stuff, but I have to pee. So I'm going to be right back. Okay. This was a gift. My friends gave it to me for my 30th birthday. And my other friend, I put inside of Alex. What's inside of Alex? Can anyone guess what I have inside of Alex? Anyone? We're waiting for our guesses. I got 40-second delay. Mimics can be jar folk. So in the jar is a strand that another friend of mine gave for my 30th birthday. And the reason why he gave me the strand is because he has a similar strand. He has a different color. But because we're both fans of Hideo Kojima and Death Stranding, and I put him in the jar because it kind of symbolizes our connection. I have a nice house. Well, this is actually... this is an apartment, and I'm moving soon. But thank you. My wife decorates. Okay. So let me read the chat before we read the last parts of the before we get to the end of the line of text, and then we start doing our Mimic commentary theorizing. Conscious Gaming. The Abyss from Dark Souls is eternal, and Mesmer is known as the Abyssal Serpent, and Marika was afraid of that darkness within him. Maybe it has some relation. That's actually, you're doing a very good line of thought, thinking about Marika being afraid of the Abyssal Serpent, of the darkness inside of Mesmer. That's a real, I think you're right on the money with that one. The only thing is that the Abyss in Dark Souls, I don't think it's not eternal, because it actually dissipates. The Abyss dissipates and shatters, well, and it's reborn again. So maybe it's eternal in a different way. It's not, the state isn't the same, but it changes overall. So what else do we got? The boats in the DLC felt very Nymeria to me. Oh, that's a very interesting idea, that the boats are like Nymeria, maybe symbolic of Nymeria. Maybe it's forbidden sorcery because it stops the stars in a non-Radon way. That's an interesting one. Iris of Grace has Erdtree painted over it, and you know how much else about illusory trees. Yep. The night sorceries are also immune to eternal darkness, I think. I don't know if we'll be able to test that, but that's actually good to know. As Preceptor Pilot, as the darkness grows within you, all positive influences from the environment, any light, is taken by the darkness and overwritten. Spiraling into your own darkness, you feel you can't escape. That is beautiful. That's very beautifully said. Very beautifully said. That's phenomenal. I love that. That's phenomenal. Kudos. I'm going to pin that. That's a pin message. What else do we got? If you could see the blood star and faintly glimmering light, like from Shibiri grapes in darkness, perhaps they did not wish to see what it was. That's a good one too. The sorcery could be forbidden because they don't want people seeing something in that darkness. Maybe it's so old that it doesn't see the difference between the two. What about Karian Retaliation? We'll get to Karian Retaliation. In your opinion, what would be the difference on magics and incantation apart from stat location? Nothing. The difference, I've talked about this in the Mimic commentary before. This is something that is expanded on, or really it's, if you play Demon Souls, it's very clear. It tells you what the difference is. The difference is just which part of your mind you're using to access that part of yourself. So in Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Elden Ring, and all these games, the soul is the core of where power comes from. And that, how you access your soul using your mind, whether you're using your intelligence to logic something out, or you're using your faith and you believe it to be true, that then manifests it into something else. So, for example, to answer your question, like eternal darkness just needs intelligence. You are just using your mind, you're using your intelligence to create this eternal darkness. Well, what about a honed bolt? Well, you're using your mind and you're using your faith to summon a lightning bolt. Your belief in the ancient dragons allows you to summon a lightning bolt. And this belief doesn't have to be grounded in any sort of material scientific work. It's ethereal. It's non-tangible, but you believe it. So what you believe and how you perceive the world is ultimately your personal truth. You know, no one can take that away from you. It might be incongruent or wrong, depending on what merits we use to determine what is right or wrong. But now we're getting into this philosophical conversation. And what these games are trying to say in that regards is, I think, that perception is king. Your perception is king. What else do we got? No, I'm keeping the couch. I'm moving, but I'm keeping the couch. Yeah, left brain magic versus right brain magic. That's the difference between sorcery and incantation. It's no, it's not the split brain drama. And also it wasn't drama. I was just being safe. I was just being cautious. The difference is vibes. Yeah, the difference is vibes. Okay. Now let's get to the last line of dialogue. Originally a lost source of the eternal city, the despair that brought about its ruin made manifest. So if you are not doing Mimic commentary rules for this analyzing, and you just know everything about, you know, you've played all of Elden Ring, and we're using everything we know. I have to burp 1 second. Excuse me. This is originally a lost sorcery of the Eternal City. So we tie this to the beginning of Forbidden Sorcery of Sellia, Town of Sorcery. So this sorcery came from the Eternal City. It was once lost, and now it looks like Celia found this sorcery. So they rediscovered this sorcery. Now remember, when we're talking about sorceries and incantations, some sorceries need faith. This one needs all faith. Well, and we'll talk about that. This one needs faith and intelligence. But generally, sorceries are kind of supposed to be scientific. They are mathematical equations, things like that. They are things that, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. That's the nature of the world. When I put you know, when I put two things, I have one water bottle, I have another water bottle, I now have 2 water bottles. You know, that's just what it is. There is not automatically 3 water bottles. So the Eternal City originally had this sorcery, but it was lost. That knowledge was lost. Now it's a sorcery of Celia, and it's forbidden. So it looks like Celia may have rediscovered eternal darkness. And why was it lost? Well, we have it in the next line. The despair that brought about its ruin made manifest. Really, really heavy words here. Despair, ruin. Ignoring the emotional context that these words are being used. What do we think about with despair? Well, I think despair pops up in some of our items if we go to our swords. This is the Banished Knight's Greatsword, finely crafted greatsword intrinsically engraved with an ancient motif. Given to knights who, whether by misfortune or misdeeds, were forced to abandon their homes, most of these knights were sent to the fringes, where they were forced to start anew, with only despair for company. What about ruin? Where can we get ruin? Well, we have the... Ruin pops up in the... Where's our crafting? Where's my ruin fragments? Where are my ruined fragments? Oh, wait, those aren't a crafting item. Those are a usable item that you can use for crafting. Ruined fragments tied to the Fallen Sky Temple from Far Mozula. So we're getting ties there, but if we think about despair again, one of our endings in the game is the Blessing of Despair. So we could start thinking about the context of which... That's Dung Eater's ending. We could start thinking about the context of Dung Eater's ending, the Blessing of Despair, the mechanics of how that works, what is going on in that side of the game. How does that tie to Eternal Darkness? Because it's using this language. It's very deliberate in its wording of despair. Ian says the Eternals hate light. The word is heavily associated with flame. I'm thinking the sun. I will get to that. We will get to that. So where was I? Oh, so this was lost because it brought about its ruin made manifest. So let's take a step back. That was doing Eternal Darkness. How did we get to Eternal Darkness? How did we get to this item? Well, you know, we started at the Chapel of Anticipation. That's where we started the game. You can either die to the Grafted Scion, or you can run to your death chasing nascent butterflies. Then you wash up the lands between. Melina gives you flasks of tears, and she's, you know, and you go off. You meet some people along the way. You meet Melina, you get Torrent, you meet Ronnie. She puts Kali to sleep. She gives you the Spirit Calling Bell. But the first mention of Celia comes at the Waypoint Ruins. So, the Waypoint Ruins, our first mention of Celia is from Glintstone Stars, which we could buy from Selin, one of the Glintstone sorceries of the Academy of Raya Lucaria, a sorcery of the Olivianus Conspectus, which attracts sorcerers from Celia, Town of Sorcery. So our first introduction to Celia is that they are interested in Glintstone Stars and the Olivianus Conspectus at the Academy. Okay? Celians, interested stars, and Livianus Conspectus. The next time we learn about the Celians, the next piece of information that we can learn about the Celians is if we go down the Schiefer River well. But in the Mimic commentary, we went to the Weeping Peninsula first, and if you go to the Witchbane Ruins, where you find the other Sorcerer Celian, we found... Where is it? Our Ambush Shard, one of the Night Sorceries of Celia, Town of Sorcery. Launches a projectile from a distance removed from the caster so as to strike the enemy from behind. This sorcery can be cast repeatedly. The Celian sorcerers were assassins, and it's said that they often hunted their fellows. So the Celians are assassins who are interested in the stars, and they're interested in the Olivianus Conspectus at the Academy because of their study of stars. And now they have night sorceries that are used to assassinate others. They hunt their fellows. So are we thinking, are the Sellians going to the academy to not only study stars, but maybe to hunt their fellows? Another thing that we noticed very early on in the Mimic commentary is that the sigil for the Sellians is very similar to the sigil of the Carians. The main difference between the two is the Carians have a sword and a staff, and the Sellians have 2 staves and a throne. So the next time we learned about the Sellians is we went down into Shifra River, and we found the Claymen. And from the Claymen, we got a few things. First is our meteoric Clayman's harpoon. Harpoon with a tip made from a sharpened meteorite shard, wielded by Claymen who infest dynastic ruins. The blade emits a faint light and deals magic damage. So a meteorite could be, well, let me just double check. I don't want to be wrong. Verse, one moment, just double checking. So the difference between a meteorite and a meteor is a meteor has the visible streak of light when it burns up in the Earth's atmosphere, where a meteorite has survived burning up in the atmosphere and has landed on the Earth. So what is another name for a meteor? A falling star. Okay, so we know that the Sellians are interested in stars. They're interested in the Livinus Conspectus. They also hunt other sorcerers. And when we get down into Shifra River, we find the Claymen, men made of clay. They're artificial men, and they have these harpoons with meteors on them. Why is that important? How does that relate to the Sellians? Because when we were also down there, we got 2 incantation of sorcery. We got 2 sorceries from them. The Oracle Bubbles and the Great Oracular Bubbles. Now these have the same sigil as the Sellian sigil. Has the same sigil on them. Has the 2 staves and the throne. Sorcery of Claymen who served as sorcery of the Claymen who served as priests in the ancient dynasty produces several small magical bubbles that drift towards foes before they naturally pop. The Claymen search for lost oracles within their bubbles, and an oracle is someone who sees the future. So now we have these Sellians are interested in stars. They also hunt other sorcerers. And now we're finding their sigil popping up on these fake men underground in this ancient dynasty that these Claymen infest. They infest the ancient dynasty. They're an infestation. They're not supposed to be there. And the Claymen, who are serving as priests, are looking for oracles within their bubbles. They're looking for the future. They're looking for people who can tell the future in their bubbles. This is getting very interesting. This is getting very interesting. This is just when we got to Shifra. When's the next time we learn about the Sellians? Well, now we have to go through Caria. We have to go through Caria, and we learn so much about the Academy. But we're just focusing on the Sellians right now. But along the way, we got things like Starlight Shards. Where are my Starlight Shards? An ephemeral sliver that gives off a pale blue glow. What remains of passing flash of starlight? A prized item that was once used in the Eternal City as an ingredient in intoxicating drafts. So the Eternal Cities are taking Starlight Shards, passing flashes of starlights, and they're making intoxicating drafts from them. They're making these liquors. They're making these brews from them. What else do we get? Well, also when we were down in Shifra, not only did we learn about the Claymen, we also found our melted mushrooms and our dew-kissed herba, an herb that grows in the false night in and around the Eternal City, soaked in arcane dew. It gives off a faint glow of starlight. And the mushroom that grows in the false night in and around the Eternal City that drips with a viscous fluid that behaves much like oil. While we were doing this theorizing, we were learning, oh gosh, you're going to have to just rewatch the Mimic commentary because you don't even know how important soap is to the lore. I can't even begin to explain how important soap is. But just long and short of it, we were deducing that the Sellians have this connection, this ancient connection to the underground and the eternal cities, and have knowledge of spiritual work. We look at soap. Filth covering the exterior eventually seeps inside, soiling one's very spirit. This soap is made out of... To make soap, you need melted mushrooms. So if you want more of that theorizing, you're going to have to watch the Mimic commentary. But we're trying to do a quick recap. What else did we learn? So we get into Liurnia and we learn more about the Academy. Now this, we're going to go hyperspeed here. It's gonna get a little wacky. It's going to get a little wild. We get things like Celestial Dew. Where is it? Celestial Dew. A hidden tier found in the Eternal City, also known as a night tier, allows one to carry out absolution at the Church of Vows, reversing all antagonizations. Once upon a time, the stars in the night sky guided fate, and this is a recollection of those times. So the Sellians are interested in stars, and stars guide fate. So the Sellians are interested in fate, and we can corroborate that with the oracular bubbles and the claymen who are searching for oracles within their bubbles. What else do we learn through Liurnia? Clue, you're right. If you talk about the oracles, though we're not ready to talk about oracles yet. Again, we're treading very close to doing prophecy stuff, and that is dangerous. That is very dangerous. We get to the Academy. Oh gosh, there's so much. Before we even get to the Academy, we get the Nox Mirror Helm. Nox means night. So we were already thinking, okay, the Sellians and their connection to night. So we could see this as a night mirror helm. Helm fashioned from a crystal looking glass. This was found, just by the way, this was found in the Cliff Bottom Catacombs. Really important catacombs with a lot of stuff in there, but we gotta skip that for right now. One among the Eternal City's ritual implements, easily broken and weak against striking attacks, warned by those committed to high treason, it wards off the intervention of the Greater Will and the Vassal Finger. So since we have this Nox, and since we have Eternal Cities, we have to start thinking, okay, now they're in the Sellians might be against the Greater Will and the Vassal Fingers. So now they're against this cosmic entity, and they're against this religious institution. And the Fingers are its vassals. So this cosmic entity that we don't know much about yet is, and its religious institution, its Fingers, the Sellians are against that. What else do we find? I gotta look at my map again. Gosh, we learned so much. At the Carian Study Hall, we learned that the Carians had alliances. Oh goodness. I gotta take a breather. I'm getting overwhelmed. Part of the theorizing that we have done is that since the Sellian sigil is similar to the Claymen sigil, and the Claymen are fake people, we were thinking, are the Carians allied with the Sellians? We have been learning all through Liurnia, we're learning not so much about the Sellians anymore, but we learn about the Carians. We learn that the Carians have esoteric knowledge. They are allied with the Crystallians, with dragons, with giants, with wolves. They're allied with all these groups, these magical groups, these ancient groups. And at the Carian Study Hall, we get items like the Cerulean Seed Talisman, a cerulean-colored talisman patterned after an Erd Tree seed. The Erd Tree was once perfect and eternal, and thus it was believed that Erd Tree seeds could not exist. So the Carians have this. They have this Erd Tree seed, which would be kind of heretical to the Golden Order culture and would be heretical to the Erd Tree. Yet, the Carians have that. When we go through the Academy, even before we even get to the Academy, we get to Church of Vows. Here we found this is where you take that Celestial Dew, where you turn back fate. That has a statue of a woman with a very particular hood and crown. Someone that we learn is called a Nox. We learned that here in Celia, at that boss fight where we fought the Crypthrone. Actually, I'm gonna go to the Crypthrone right now so we can use that as part of our timeline. I didn't teleport right. Let's go here. Tell me if I'm getting confusing. Tell me if it's not making sense. I'm trying to condense 120 episodes of theorizing to show what we have been learning. Anything? Give me a second. I gotta recoup my thoughts. We just did Church of Vows. Why, whenever you turn into a statue when using Mid Veil, is a statue in Liurnia where you meet a riot? Does it appear somewhere else? Yeah, those statues, they appear here, here, here. They appear at Raya Lucaria. They appear in Karya Manor. They appear... they appear anywhere else? They appear, I think, at the study hall, but that's all I can think of right now. I guess I'll just do... I guess what I really want to get at is by looking at all of the items that we find in Liurnia, there's really so much to it. We essentially learn that the Carians have this knowledge of the world that other people don't. And they have knowledge of fate and prophecy of the future. And the Sellians appears to as well. But we're not really sure what the relationship between the Sellians and the Carians are. Their sigils look similar, but are they in alliance or are they enemies? Are they branches from different familial houses? Are they just sharing the same culture? It's really hard to say right now. But what we do know is that after we meet Ronnie, we learn that for her fate to continue, we have to go kill her brother Radon. And Radon is right outside of Celia, holding back the stars. So both the Carians and both the Sellians are interested in the stars' fate. And because they're interested in fate, they might start seeing things, or might be putting things in their symbols that look very peculiar, you could say. So if we were to look at this crypt throne, where we fought the Nox Swordstress and the Nox monk, we see the throne. We finally see the back of the throne. This is the sigil. And we see this guy getting his butt kicked. We get... What is this? What do you all see when you look at the back of the throne? I'll tell you what I see, and then you tell me what you see first. Do you think the Bloodstar and Eternal Darkness have to do with the Elmer of the Briar? He's covered in thorns. Yeah, we'll get to it. Don't worry. Don't worry. We haven't even started the Eternal Darkness theorizing. I was just trying to give you all a recap of how important the Sellians are. There's actually another thing about the Sellians. This... the converted Fringe Tower is guarded by a Carian knight, and you have to do iridation to get into the tower. And when you get into the tower, or the sigil blocking the gate that you have to use iridation to get through is a Sellian sigil, and your reward are the Haima spells. This is important for the Sellians, which is about the adjudicators of the academy. So this tower at the converted Fringe Tower, guarded by a Carian, tells us that the Haima Conspectus, the Conspectus that is interested in adjudicating the academy and making sure the rules are being followed and punishing those who deserve to be punished or just quelling the conflict, they are associated with the Sellians. Also, there was a Michaelis lily there, but we can't do lily stuff. You also need the crown. Yes, you do need the crown. Okay, so what do people see? Some people are cheating. Some people say they see a rib cage. Some see Urba, Dukist Urba. Reminds me of the Elden Beast. Looks aquatic. Moon presence, fins, rib cage. I see a kind of primordial crustacean or a tree. You mimic commentary people are cheating. Oh, yes, you're correct, Ian. There is also a seed of the star in there. skeleton, ribcage, leaf, and tree. All really great things. So I'll tell you what I see. Using our prophetic knowledge, looking into the future. If I was going to follow the fate of the stars, if I was going to look at the end of the story, how do you beat Elden Ring? Well, you go inside of the Erd Tree and you fight the Elden Beast. The Elden Beast is this aquatic animal that lives in a tree that has fins. Now, I'm going to give full credit to Kate the Kind, who was in the chat earlier. She's the one who showed me this last year. The Sellians know about the Elden Beast. Maybe. These thrones also appear in the Eternal Cities. We found one so far in the Mimic Commentary. Found one at the Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella. Now I'm going to have to go back. We're putting the blindfold back on. I can't look at future information right now, and I'm not doing any more recaps because it's going to make me go crazy. We're jumping in our theorizing. So the Sellians are aware of kind of the truth and nature of this world, and they know the fate in the stars. You know, they are interested in trying to, just like the Carians. Oops, I did undo my telescope that I'm still using. Let's put that back on. Astrology tool used by members of the Carian royal family, a stolen part of a larger instrument. During the age of the Erd Tree, Carian astrology withered on the vine. The fate once written in the night skies had been fettered by the Golden Order. So not only are the Carians using the stars and looking at them for fate, but it appears that the Sellians are too, and that's why they're so interested in stars. They're interested in the future. And we chose the Prophet class, and we know that the future is knowable, just from our Catch Flame incantation. From the very beginning of the game, we know that prophets see the Erd Tree burning. Now it looks like there's other ways for people to look at prophecy. We don't know yet how prophets are able to see the future within Elden Ring, as we are in the Mimic Commentary. But now it looks like that the Carians and the Sellians are looking at stars to predict the future. And part of that future has to do with this aquatic animal and a tree. Not sure if it also looks like wheat. Could look like, wheat's an interesting one. Wheat is interesting. Wheat, if we think, I think Shadow of the Erd Tree, wheat would make us think of Mikola. Something also very interesting here, too, is that grace brought us here. Now, we've already done in our Mimic Commentary theorizing that grace is Marika. That grace is Marika. And grace wants us to go down this way and kill Radahn. It wants us to kill Radahn, but it also wanted us to go to Millicent. And if you watch episode 120 of the Mimic Commentary, that is our Millicent episode. She seems like a person who is in eternal darkness until we gave her the unalloyed gold needle. After meeting Millicent, who was her own despair and ruin, then we find this eternal darkness. It's very interesting. Okay, so what is the key takeaway from like my recap, my very hastily done recap? It looks like the Sellians are a group tied to the Eternal Cities that are fighting the Greater Will and its vassal fingers. And they are trying to protect some knowledge, perhaps protect knowledge of the future, or they're trying to learn more about the future. They hunt other sorcerers, and what do sorcerers do? Sorcerers are trying to learn how the world works. If we think about Thops's Barrier and Eternal Darkness, they're very similar spells. This one deflects, this one draws them in. So there is kind of a fear that people within the Academy are going to learn about these truths of the world, that they're going to learn about maybe this lost sorcery, this Eternal Darkness, and it might be something that they don't want them to cast. The other thing about the Sellians is we don't know what exactly their goal is, but we know that they're interested in night. Throughout this entire, through early in our theorizing, we got the Sunrealm Shield. Where is our Sunrealm Shield? These comes from those who live in death. Shield of honor depicting a city crowned by the sun has seen better days. Much like the wear upon the shield, the seat of the sun is long faded away. So if the Sellians are interested in fighting against the sun or the sun realm, maybe they're trying to it's eternal darkness, but it's forbidden. Is it forbidden because of the knowledge? If the Sellians are the Nox, because we have the night sorceries, we fought the Nox sorceress, that means their goal should be night. Previously, hey Benny, stuck at work watching the VOD, appreciate that. Even in my less active times, it's great having you all discuss my favorite story with. Keep digging. Thanks, man. Okay. So we have our Sun Realm shield, and we know we've been learning about how everything within the lands between, before the age of the Erd Tree, before Godfrey did his campaign through the lands between, like the Summon Order Village, that was Sun Realm. These churches were most likely Sun Realm until they added new statues there. You know, you find graveyards all throughout the lands between, and those graveyards aren't for Erd Tree burial. They're just very regular graveyards. Even in Celia, when we come up this way, Celia is guarded by, or not Celia is guarded by, just behind Celia. Here, I'll show you. So when we follow Grace to reach Millicent, we have those who live in death. Look, one of them's coming to life, tied to our Sun Realm. So, is the Sun Realm allied with Celia? Or are they enemies? Is this guy going to still shoot at me? I gotta get rid of this bozo. Your time in the sun is over, buddy. Oh my goodness, there's more. Hey, this guy, this one's a cool one. So, he is actually a farmer. Did you know that this Sun Realm guy is a farmer? I'll show you that in just a second. So if we look at the weapons they drop, this is a side note, not part of the theorizing, but you know, if you haven't been watching the mimic commentary, you might not have known this. Weapon comprised of a sharp blade affixed to a long grip. It is a sickle repurposed to be a tool of war. This far-reaching weapon excels at slashing attacks. That is to tell us that the people that we are fighting, like those who live in death, are people who had to go to war even if they did not want to. Celia is an anagram for allies. Ooh, maybe they are allies. So maybe this eternal, maybe the reason why eternal darkness is forbidden is because they don't want people to know they're trying to, you know, make a world without sunlight. If we think of the Erd Tree, we have deduced so far in the Mimic commentary that since, from our talismans, the Cerulean seed talisman, that it's an Erd Tree seed, and that people don't think it should have existed. The other type of seeds we found, we have our illusory seeds. Do I have any illusory seeds right now? I thought I had an illusory golden seed. Oh, I do. Our seeds so far, we have Erd Tree seeds, we have golden seeds based at the base of illusory trees. So the Erd Tree is an illusion in some way. And our other seeds is in our talisman. The Graven School Talisman. Talisman depicting a school of graven mages, the nightmare of the Academy. The primeval current is a forbidden tradition of glintstone sorcery. To those who cleave to its teachings, the act of collecting sorcerers to fashion them into seeds of stars is but another path of scientific inquiry. So at the Academy, they're trying to make seeds of stars. And you might not have noticed this, but the helmets for the Graven Mass are either Olivianus helmets, Olivianus stone crowns, which is the sorcerer Lusat and his study of meteors, and Lazuli Glintstone crowns, which is the Lazuli inspectors, which studies Carian sorcery. So the seeds of stars are the people who are following, who are really the Sellians. And we found Lusat's here. Lusat's staff was found here in Celia after defeating the Nox Sorceress and the Nox Maiden. So what I'm thinking is perhaps the reason why eternal darkness is forbidden is because it has to do with this plot that the Nox, and when I say the Nox, the Sellians, the Nox and the Sellians, are trying to maybe make a world without a sun. If you wanted to use your prophetic power and look to the future, you would start thinking of Ronnie's ending. You would start thinking of Night Rain, okay? But don't go too far. Don't use too much prophetic power. You might get confused. Where was I? So with the Erd Tree, so far our only seeds so far, Erd Tree seeds that shouldn't exist, golden seeds that happened after the shattering and their illusions, and then seeds of the stars. The stars of the night sky once guided fate, but now it's been fettered by the Golden Order. If we look at our sigils, we'll have to change our equipment to the not Godric's, but Landel's Knight armor. We farmed to get this armor early in the game. If you come to the Artist Shack, you can farm the Knight here to get his armor. Armor worn by knights sworn to defend the royal capital. Its left breast is emblazoned with a symbol of Erd Tree worship, and is said once to be imbued with an incantation of protection. And in it, we see what looks like a cross. So the cross is supposed to be the Erd Tree, but in the center, we see the rings. Well, we know that's supposed to be the Elden Ring because we can look at the box of the game and know that's the Elden Ring. We also have, let's put my shirt back on, from our telescope, during the age of the Erd Tree. So Erd Tree worship shows the Erd Tree, and in the center of the Erd Tree is the Elden Ring. Karian astrology withered on the vine. The fate once written in the night skies fettered by the Golden Order. So during the age of the Erd Tree, the fate was fettered by the Golden Order. Well, we have two things for here. So astrology withered on the vine. There's actually, the sentence could be broken down in two ways. During the age of the Erd Tree, Karian astrology withered on the vine. Well, it could have withered on the vine because with the big glowing tree at all times of day, this is kind of like an artificial sun. You can't see the stars that well with all this light pollution. We can't see the stars that well. The other thing is it says the Golden Order. Now, at the if we think about Golden Order fundamentalists, the Golden Order fundamentalists, their iconography does not show the Erd Tree. So the left breast is emblazoned with a symbol of the Erd Tree. So this shows the Erd Tree and an Elden Ring. If we go to our spells, where's our spells again? Where's our spells? I lost them. I feel so silly. Where are my spells? Oh, here they are. If we look at these, this is an ancient Erd Tree incantation. So not Erd Tree worship, just ancient Erd Tree incantation. We still see that cross again, but now we're getting roots, we're getting twigs, we're getting branches, and we're still getting the Elden Ring inside of there. But then when we look at Golden Order fundamentalism, they don't care about the Erd Tree. They just care about the Elden Ring. So when we think Golden Order, we're thinking Elden Ring. So during the age of the Erd Tree, Karian astrology withered on the vine. So it's just the age of the Erd Tree, Karian astrology withered on the vine. The fate once written in the night sky had been fettered by the Golden Order. Now, when we're reading our text too, do not look at these causally. It doesn't. When I see this, I don't see it saying during the age of the Erd Tree, Karian astrology withered on the vine. Thus, the fate once written in the night skies had been fettered by the Golden Order. I read it as during the age of the Erd Tree, Karian astrology withered on the vine because the fate once written in the night sky had been fettered by the Golden Order. If the Golden Order exists before the age of the Erd Tree, astrology could still be going on, but the fate in the night sky is being fettered by the Golden Order. Why are we going through this line of thinking? Well, if the night sky If the stars in the night sky once guided fate, if the stars in the night sky once guided fate, where is it? Where's our celestial dew? And that was a recollection of those times. Does that mean the Erd tree is from the seed of a star seed? Is the Elden Ring a star from space? Now, if you already know about Elden stars, you're like, yes, of course. But we're doing Mimic Commentary rules for a reason. We're doing Mimic Commentary rules for a reason. This is what happens when we put on our blindfold. Okay, so it looks like the Sellians think, believe, or know that the Erd tree comes from a seed from the star. Now, the Sellians, one thing that's very interesting about the Sellians is that they are very particular about falling stars. In the Sellian Crystal Tunnel, we fought our first falling star beast, and he looked very similar to the Astel, or sorry, I was going ahead of myself. He looked very similar to the upside down hanging monster we found in Noxtella, or I should say the Ainzel River, outside of Noxtella. We also found, where's our katanas? Meteoric Ore Blade. Katana forged from meteoric ore to dispatch life forms born from falling stars. Okay, so from falling stars, life forms can be born. Now think about the crypt again. Think about the chair again. Think about the symbol on the throne. Life forms born from falling stars. This blade is weighty and known to deliver slashes such ferocity that the impact is said to resemble a crash of a falling star. And its skill is gravitas, skill originating from an alabaster lord who had skins of stone. Okay, well, falling stars are meteorites, they're meteors. From that comes an alabaster lord, and they have this pole magic. The other katana, the reason why we know this is tied to Sellians is because of Moonveil, katana forged of glintstone, masterpiece of Sellian swordsmith. Light enwreaths the blade when sheathed, explaining its Moonveil moniker, and its unique skill is transient moonlight. Sheath the blade, holding it at the hip in a composed stance, follow up with a normal or strong attack. To draw the blade at great speed, instant slash attack, both attacks fire off waves of light. So this transient moonlight, this moon veil, so the moon is hidden. It's hidden inside of the katana. And the Sellian swordsmith made this. So the Sellians are tied to the moon. Not just any moon, but a hidden moon. Or maybe the moon is hiding the truth. We can deduce that this meteoric ore blade must have also been made by a Sellian to slay falling stars, or life forms born from falling stars. So they're interested in killing life forms born from falling stars. Before we continue, I just want to check this chat. Because we're going to get some more interesting things. We're going to jump back into Eternal Darkness. Let's see. There's a fin at the bottom of the trunk of the Landell symbol? Is there? Is there a fin? There's a fin at the bottom? Wait, let me put that. Oh my god, that you're right. That is a fin. Wait a minute. No frickin' way. Oh my god, it's a fish. It's a fishtail. That's so sick. Oh my god, the freaking Elden Beast stuff is all over the place. Look at that. That's a fish. That is a fin. That is, you know, I've always been saying there's something fishy. There's something fishy going on with that Erd tree. Something fishy with that Erd tree. Wow, good catch. Good catch. That's a good one. Oh, you know, I didn't even do the Depraved Perfumer stuff in the last episode. We'll do that. We'll save that for another. The stream is supposed to be Eternal Darkness. Okay, so it looks like there's the Sellians have knowledge about the origins of the Erd tree and how it does faith. And they seem like they want night. The Sellians want night. Well, right now it's like day all of the time. No matter what time of day the Erd tree is out, there's like an artificial sun. And that's kind of what the Erd Tree is associated with. If we look at our glowstones, not our glowstones, our warming stones, it is said that the Erd Tree was once as warm as the gentle sun and would gradually heal all who bathed in its rays. So the Erd Tree was once as warm as the gentle sun would gradually heal all who bathed in its rays. But it doesn't anymore. It's kind of replaced the sun, but it's not healing anybody. Why doesn't it heal anybody anymore? Well, if you've been following the Mimic commentary, if you've watched my other videos, you would know that we come to the conclusion that it's Deathroot. Since Deathroot is the rune of death, spreading across the lands between through the underground roots of the Great Tree, sprouting in the form of Deathroot, souls can't return to the Erd Tree. So the Erd Tree can't be fed. So not only has this gentle warmth of the sun been replaced by the Erd Tree, now the Erd Tree is kaput. It's dead. Or it's dying. It's not working anymore. Why is that? Why is that? Well, because in the Night of Black Knives, scions of the Eternal City and Rani the Witch assassinated Godwyn the Golden. And what do we know about the Sellians? From our night sorceries, the Sellians sorcerers were assassins, and it is said that they often hunted their fellows. So, is the Era's Reach Talisman affects the telescope? Wait, before... How far is that? Okay, what if I take this off? Whoa! Game changer. Uh-oh, Kyra's getting excited. There's people outside. 1 second, we gotta wait for dog to stop barking. Wow, that's crazy. You okay, puppy? You good? You're a good girl. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, so we're making a comparison between, now we're comparing the Knight of Black Knives. Knight of Black Knives, if we wanted to translate that into Latin, it would be Nox of Black Knives. So now we're getting a tie between the Sellians, the Nox, the Black Knife Assassins, Rani the Witch, all coming together to kill the Erd Tree. Hey, what the heck's that up there? I didn't know you could see dragons from here. You can see the dragon tail up there. That's funny. Now we're getting a conspiracy. And this is what's really fun about Elden Ring theorizing. Now we're doing a conspiracy of, was the Erd Tree created to replace the sun so that people would not use the sun anymore for power? People would start using the Erd Tree, using its dew and sap, and then we kill the Erd Tree, and now we're ready for night to take over. Now their light bulb is just a light bulb. How many dog hunters looked at a dog just now? I know. She's so sweet. I love my dog so much. Just like everyone else loves their dog. So let's that's what I'm thinking is going on here. I'm thinking the Sellians are working maybe in tandem, maybe they're following a prophecy, maybe they're following fate. Most likely I think they're prophetic. I think the Sellians are prophetic. And I think they might be anticipating us. Something that we've discovered, or that we focus on a lot on this channel and a lot in our theorizing, is how knowing the future gets people to do something. And it looks like the Sellians may have been perhaps manufacturing a prophecy, maybe about burning the Erd Tree. So we know the Erd Tree is going to burn because of Catch Flame. And maybe this is their Eternal Darkness plot. Maybe it's the plot for Eternal Darkness. Maybe that's what the Nox plot is. The Nox is a plot for Eternal Darkness. How do you get Eternal Darkness? Well, you can't beat the sun permanently. We have stuff about the eclipse, okay? We know about the eclipse, the symbol of the Wandering Mausoleums where the soulless demigods slumber, and that the eclipsed sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods, and it aids mausoleum knights by keeping destined death at bay. But an eclipse is not permanent. The eclipse is not permanent. So how do you truly defeat the sun? It seems like to defeat the sun, you need eternal darkness. How would you get eternal darkness? Well, we had the Sun Realm before the Age of the Erd Tree. We had the Sun Realm, long faded away. And just from our deductions in the Mimic commentary, it looks like they lost against the Erd Tree. All we have to do is really look at our Erd Tree Great Bro that we found in the Fringe Folk Hero's grave, which is right here. Great bow featuring Erd Tree styling in times of old when faith and battle went hand in hand. This weapon was created in tandem with the Golden Great Arrow. Scales all arrow damage with faith, revealing its true worth when used with holy infused arrows. So in times of old when faith and battle went hand in hand, having faith in the Erd Tree. Who's not having faith in the Erd Tree? Probably someone who's worshiping the sun. Probably someone who's worshiping the sun. So we get rid of all our sun worshippers. Would a sun worshipper switch to moon worship if the sun is taken away, since the moon reflects the sun? That's a very good question. Something that we found through Liurnia is we found the Wraith Callers, we found the Royal Revenants, one Royal Revenant here, and we found a Royal Revenant. He was the boss of the King's Realm Ruins. They are weak to healing spells, either two-finger healing spells or Erd Tree healing incantations. So I think they might be, and what we're going to find later in the Mimic commentary, is how the Royal Revenants are Sun Realm royalty. This is confirmed in Shadow of the Erd Tree, but how they're Sun Realm royalty, and the sun and the moon really make a strong alliance. Like I know when we look at an eclipse, when we look at eclipse iconography, we might start thinking, well, the sun and the moon are in opposition, but this could be an alliance of, the sun and the moon coming together temporarily. This could be a symbol of their alliance. The moon is very interesting in this regard because although the Sellians have Moonveil, and we know the Eternal City once had a memory stone, prized lightly beguiling stone, prized by the sorcerers, produced them, said to be a fragment of the black moon that once hung above the Eternal City. We know that there's something to do with a black moon, but we don't really have much information on it yet in the Mimic commentary. But what I'm seeing is that the reason why the Sellians might be assassinating their own is because they're trying to protect knowledge of the Eternal Darkness plot. And who are they trying to protect that plot from? Like, who do we not want to know about this plot? Well, not only do we not want the people of the lands between to know that these potentially shapeshifters, potentially people from the underground, potentially people from the ancient dynasty or these underground eternal cities, we don't want them to know that we're playing with their politics, because if we think about, we already know from defeating the Nox Swordstress and the Nox Monk. Where is our weapon? Where is it? Ah, here it is. So our Nox Flowing Sword, which can shapeshift like that. A grim weapon wielded by swordsmen of the Eternal City, this Shotel has a blade as fine as a needle. Forged from the liquid metal of a silver tear, is thoroughly tempered until hardened. So we already know now that the Nox are tied to silver tears. And what are silver tears? They are creatures of mimicry. And at the core is the larval tear. And where did we find our first larval tear? Well, we found it on an Erd Tree noble who turned into a rune bear. We found another one who was a crayfish who turned into a grafted scion. A grafted scion is a royal of the golden lineage. We found it on a Erd Tree noble who was here. Right here, we found it. And he was an Erd Tree noble who turned into a troll with a flaming sword. So it seems like they want to keep this knowledge hidden because you don't want the people of the lands between to know that there's shapeshifters who are trying to set up a golden tree to take down the sun, so then they can take down the tree and then bring about eternal darkness. Now, what's the other interesting thing about eternal darkness? It's that it brought ruin and despair to the eternal, like, the Eternal City. Well, so far we have 2 Eternal Cities. We have Nokron, which is beneath Celia. We have Nokstella beneath Liurnia. But are those the only Eternal Cities? Did Eternal Darkness bring about the Ruin Made Manifest for Nokron? Did it bring a Ruin Made Manifest to Nokstella? Because it's important in this language. Let's look at the language of it again. Lost Sorcery of the Eternal City. So it's of one of the Eternal City, that the despair that brought about its Ruin Made Manifest. So it's either Nokron, it's either Nokstella, or is there another Eternal City that we're unaware of that it could have brought ruin to? And how could it have done that? So let's look at the spell. We did a lot of yapping before we can even use the spell. So let's see what happens when we summon it. It shows the Sellian sigil. We see the Sellian sigil, and it summons a spiraling black hole above our head. We can see it doesn't really look as eye-shaped as it did in the icon, but we see it's pulling things in. So let's see what this looks like when we do this with a sorcerer. Oh, he's not going to cast anything. I need some sorcerers to cast some things. Let's see what it does. All right, it pulls it in, and it... Oh, goodness. I got to get rid of these guys before they eat my Great Rune. If the 2 Eternal Cities we know in here are described as twins, would that suggest the third city came either before or after the twins? That's a really good question. If there is a third one. There is, but... A sun got dark hold. Let's see. Oh, this guy, he casts pretty good stuff. Okay. Cast me some sorceries. Oh, only some of them went around. Is it going to do again? There you go. Look at that. Okay. So, it's... Oh, goodness. I got to get out of here before they beat me up. So, we're oh, goodness. So... Oh, my goodness. Holy crap. I know I could fight him, but you know what? We just got to get out of here. So... we are getting that. How does sucking in sorceries cause the Ruin Made Manifest? Is it just the knowledge? Well, the interesting thing about how it looks, and that they were interested in falling stars, that the Sellians are interested in falling stars. When we think of falling stars, we have to think of meteorite. Meteorite was found. To get meteorite, we have to go to the Royal Grave Everjail, which is behind Caria Manor, and we fought an Onyx Lord there. The Onyx Lord gave us the meteorite spell, one of the glintstone sorceries that manipulates gravitational forces. This sorcery originates from the Onyx Lord, who had skin of stone, and were called lords in reverential fear of their destructive power. This is in contrast to the Alabaster Lords, who have skin of stone, that taught young Radon how to do gravitational techniques. The gravitational techniques of the Alabaster Lords is picking up rocks and throwing them, condensing gravitational forces and pulling in things towards the caster. But the Alabaster, or the Onyx Lords, who was imprisoned inside of an Everjail behind Caria. So now we're getting the Carians most likely are against Alabaster Lords, but they're allied with, or they're against Onyx Lords, but they're allied with Alabaster Lords. Why are they against Onyx Lords? Well, this is what an Onyx Lord spell looks like. It looks like meteorite. And look at that. It's kind of hard to see because of our perspective, but look at that. Doesn't that kind of look like Eternal Darkness? Doesn't that kind of look like Eternal Darkness? Look. Kind of looks like Eternal Darkness, right? But instead of pulling in, something is coming out of it. So this is Eternal Darkness. And then this is Meteorite. Kind of looks similar. The Eternal Darkness is in, while what do you call it? Meteorite is out. So did Meteorite cause Eternal Darkness, we have another thing that we can go down. So we are going to continue. We're going to continue Eternal Darkness theorizing. We're going to do Briars of Sin theorizing. We're going to do that in the Mimic Commentary. We're going to do that in the Mimic Commentary. We're not going to touch this in the stream. However, we're going to do something else. So if you want to continue on with that, what's going on the Briars of Sin theorizing, which is going to have to do with America, and it's going to have to do with prophecy, consider becoming a member, and consider watching the Mimic Commentary. Preceptor Pilot brings up a good point. What does it actually absorb spells? What are spells made of? Souls. The darkness and the absence of the soul creates a vacancy where the surrounding soul aether can flow into it. We could see this gentle flow. I think that's a very, very good way of putting it. So we're on our time traveler. This is our blind swordsman. He has a bunch of stuff in here. Imagine the lore discussion we could have by looking at all these eyes. Like, so we could talk about so many things. Not even just like Eternal Darkness. We can look at Fleeting Microcosm. We could look at Meteorite of Estelle. Okay? But I'm going to show you, this is a sneak peek of what is coming in essentially like the Mimic Commentary, and how close new information pops up within Elden Ring. So we get Eternal Darkness from Celia, and then if you come to Redmane Castle before the festival, you can fight a particular boss. That is going to give us an item that is going to tell us a lot about Eternal Darkness. Yeah, shackles off. Well, the blind swordsman, he's got Nicholas Crown to keep him sane. Any questions or comments? Any feedback from that little did it make sense? Did the theorizing make sense? Did doing that theorizing kind of make sense? That's my biggest concern, that presenting Mimic Commentary stuff, not even just presenting Mimic Commentary stuff, just like presenting the theorizing just might not make sense to people. That's my biggest concern. I want to make sure that because the process of the theorizing is, for me personally, more important than what the end goal is. It's not enough to say here is what the answer is. What's important is that how we try and find those answers, and what we think about it along the way. And doing this live stream has been a lot of fun because it's been a collaborative experience of, not just me doing it, but seeing what you all have to say, sharing these thoughts, and then getting your opinions. That's what's really spectacular. When we actually do the Mimic Commentary, we're going to redo this area and actually analyze it for the Mimic Commentary episode for Redmane Castle. But right now, I just want to show you how close, after getting Eternal Darkness, do we get an item that gives us so much context into oh goodness, that gives us more context on the item that you might not expect. An interesting connection can be made with Comet Azure and Eternal Darkness. Yeah, Comet Azure actually brings up the Abyss too. We can't fully delve into Eternal Darkness without all the Primeval Current stuff. Okay, so let's say we're in New Game Plus. We're doing something similar to fighting the Asylum demon in Dark Souls 1. We come to Redmane Castle, and we know that Radon is, he wants to emulate both Radagon, and he wants to emulate Godfrey. He wants to be an Elden Lord like Godfrey. He wears the lion like Godfrey, and he wears the red mane like helmet because he is, you know, proud to be a son of Radagon. Well, when we get here before... I want to talk about these guys before they kill me. When we get here before fighting Radahn, we see how in his forces we have representation of both Godfrey and Radagon. The Crucible Knight, who is a knight of Godfrey, and the Misbegotten. The Misbegotten needs a little bit more work to prove that he's related to Radagon. Oh, goodness. He's related to Radagon because he's kicking my butt like Radagon does. One of the pieces is that he wields the Iron Greatsword, which is the sword found on the hooded statues, but that kind of was retroactively to figure out that they are Radagon. He has a lot of Radagon's weapons. He's got the red hair, obviously. But one of the big things is that he's here fighting alongside a Crucible Knight, and we know that Radahn is proud to be a son of Radagon, and he also wants to emulate Godfrey. So we can just see from this boss fight, we are getting information about the two, like, masculine figures in Radahn's life that he wants to emulate. The Misbegotten representing Radagon, and the Crucible Knight representing Godfrey. So just like we did in the cave, looking at the wolves and the beastmen and thinking about Radagon, and thinking about the Carians and thinking about the Urchin, we could do the same with the bosses here at Redmane Castle, because of all the stuff that we know about Radahn. Uh-oh. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Killed him in one hit. So we got the Ruins Greatsword. Here is where it ties together to me. One big revelation we can get. Eternal darkness has to do with the Blood Star, has to do with Marika, has to do with the Sellians. But the big thing about eternal darkness is that it's the despair that brought about its ruin made manifest. This is the Ruins Greatsword. So when we think eternal darkness, now we're thinking ruin. After eternal darkness, we get the Ruins Greatsword. Originally rubble from a ruin which fell from the sky. This surviving fragment was honed into a weapon, one of the legendary armaments. The ruin it came from crumbled when struck by a meteorite. As such, this weapon harbors its destructive power. So the reason why, I don't even have Eternal Darkness on this character. So just remember what it looked like. So the reason why it was important to say that Eternal Darkness looked like meteorite is because Eternal Darkness told us that the Eternal City, its despair that brought about its ruin made manifest. If we're thinking that, did the Eternal Cities accidentally summon a meteorite to destroy them? We look at our Ruins Greatsword. The ruin it came from crumbled when struck by a meteorite. As such, this weapon harbors its destructive powers. Rubble from a ruin which fell from the sky. Now I just got to double check something. Said to be a fragment of the Black Moon. This is a... Here we go. This is what I want to get at. We're looking really far into the future. The Nameless Eternal City is right, it's right here. Here's the Nameless Eternal City. I'm going to have to end I just got a call from work, so I'm going to have to end this shortly. Here is the Nameless Eternal City below Leyndell. Okay? Directly below Leyndell. Let's look at... I can't look at Eternal Darkness right now. Originally a lost sorcery of the Eternal City, this despair that brought ruin made manifest. Okay, so if it's not Nokron, if it's not Nokstella, maybe it's the Nameless Eternal City, because they just mentioned the Eternal City. It's ruin made manifest. Originally a rubble from a ruin which fell from the sky. This surviving fragment was honed into a weapon. The ruin it came from crumbled when struck by a meteorite. As such, this weapon harbors its destructive power. Okay, so a meteorite was summoned, and it turned this into a fragment. Where else does fragment come from? Black, lightly beguiling stone, prized by sorcerers who produce them, said to be a fragment of the black moon that once hung above the eternal city. What is that black moon? Well, we're talking about the Sellians, we were talking about the Nox. We have the, where is our legendary talisman? Somewhere within this bunk. Maybe I never, oh, here it is. This legendary talisman, treasure of Noxella, the eternal city. The talisman represents the lost black moon. The moon of Noxella was guide of countless stars. Well, falling stars are also meteorites. So did it guide, did the moon of Noxella guide a meteorite to hit it? Did that meteorite, well, where do meteorites come from? We know meteorites are falling stars. They're falling stars. If you think about our falling star beasts, do we have our Astel, our natural born? A malformed star born in a lightless void far away. Once destroyed an eternal city and took away their sky, a falling star of ill omen. Well, how did it destroy that? How did it destroy the eternal city and take away its night sky? Well, we're thinking about how the Nox and the eternal cities were at war with the greater will. We're thinking about how it was that Astel was born from a void. When we meet Ymir in Shadow of the Erd Tree. Do I have his helmet? I should have his helmet. Here it is. The circular design at the top represents the greater will in its lightless abyss, imparting increased intelligence in its arcane on the wearer. Okay, it's abyss. Where do we get our, where's our gravitational missile? One of the glintstone sorceries that manipulate gravitational forces, said to have originate in a lightless dark far beyond, the home of the falling star beast. So, far beyond, that is where it comes from, in the dark, like the abyss of the greater will. Where would that be? Could it be, which, see, do I have the item for it? I don't think I have all the items in this inventory to do the theorizing. But what I'm trying to get across here, oh, I think I do. No, I don't have it. Sorry. So we're going to have to cut that theorizing short. My apologies. I don't have all of the items. But what I'm seeing from looking at these items, by looking at Eternal Darkness, then looking at Ruined Sword Fragment, then looking at the Memory Stones, then looking at the Estelles, looking at what we know about the Greater Will and its lightless dark abyss, I'm seeing that the Eternal City, the nameless Eternal City, was destroyed by the Black Moon being destroyed by a meteorite, specifically by the Greater Will. Now, where would we get that? How would we tie that together? How would we know that it would be the Black Moon that destroyed it? Well, we go back to our talismans in Shadow of the Erd Tree. And we have Shattered Stone Talisman. Linchpin stones are spiritual anchors said to hold the ground in place and quell the fury of earthquakes. When this one shattered, the surrounding town fell into the broken earth. One account claimed that the moon itself came tumbling down. So the pieces of this story is that eternal darkness is forbidden because it could possibly evoke the ire of the greater will, causing it to send falling stars. One of those falling stars perhaps hit the moon of Noxella, maybe out when it was in the sky. That moon fragmented and destroyed the eternal city. So what did the other eternal cities have to do? They have to go underground. They have to hide from the falling stars. They have to hide from the greater will. And when we think about how Marika, the Eternal, we think about her relationship with Metter, the Mother of Fingers, we think about who she is as a character and what she's doing in this story and who she's doing it for, it makes me think about that peculiar doll in that prison cell. I don't know. It makes me think about these characters that are doing these complex plots, that are fighting these great these stellar these outer space beings that exist outside of their universe. For what purpose, you know? And it makes me think of that peculiar doll. Like, you know, it just is the same guy on the screen. It makes me think of that doll with like that sword. I don't know if I could show it, but it's just like, it really just, all of this is just an effort to show how, by playing these games in a specific way or in a certain way, and just allowing it to, just engaging it with as a piece of art, it's really so meaningful. And the true magic is that so many people watched me talk about it for like 2 hours. And that is probably my favorite thing of all. So before we end the stream, I want to talk about one of my favorite items in all of Elden Ring. It is, where is it? It's the Script Stone. Ruined fragment with a cipher inscription. Craftable item. Uses FP to reveal more messages from other worlds. Words are gregarious things, drawn to one another, much as people are. So since all of you were joined to this stream to watch me talk about Elden Ring, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully I can turn this into a video that I could share with more people, and maybe it'll help enrich someone's life by being able to learn that they can access this world of imagination and creativity just by sitting down and taking the time to play through Elden Ring or Dark Souls or any of these games in the way that they're designed. With you and your creativity, you and your peculiar doll. So, thank you everybody. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Consider watching the Mimic commentary. Consider becoming a member if you like the Mimic commentary. And consider joining the Discord where you could share your theories. Perhaps in the future we'll do different streams that have to do more on what you want to share about Elden Ring and going from there. All right.